When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Vote for peace, vote for love, vote for hope, vote for change. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can restore hope, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who lead with love, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Vote for peace, vote for love, vote for hope, vote for change. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins.
You have to be because when results start coming, there's a whole different broadcast. Okay, good evening, everybody. We are having an audio test in the background, and shortly we'll begin our Code Yellow podcast. Will begin in just a few minutes. We're just having some technical difficulties we're sorting out in the background, and we will be able to join the podcast in just a few minutes. By 1 hour and a half ago, polls closed across Trinidad and Tobago, and voters came out in their record numbers for the most important election in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, everyone, and we do apologize for our late start, but it's a long night ahead. My name is Jerome Lewis, and joining me on set, we have two of the most experienced gentlemen, one in broadcast industry, and the other is our intellectual son of the soil. Professor Selwyn Kojo to my left, and to my right is journalist Ken Ali. Now, ladies and gentlemen, during the night, we'll be giving you updates as the results come in from each constituency, and you'll be getting fresh updates as we go along. But I want to turn my attention to Ken Ali as one of our leading journalist who has been on this case for a long time. Ken, you've been writing about elections for quite a number of years, and you've been following this election very closely. What is your overview of what you've seen in the last 6 weeks on the campaign trail?
Jerome, first, good evening to all our many listeners and viewers around the world. Thank you for joining us and spread the message that we are live and we're going to bring you the results. And we hope you stay with us because we're going to have vigorous discussions. Jerome, it's nice to be with you and your famous voice. Trinidad and Tobago knows your voice for many, many years, an esteemed member of the local media, and Professor Kudjo, highly acclaimed intellectual, academic, and I'm really overawed almost to be sitting around the table with him.
Thank you.
So it's great to be here. Jerome, to your question, I will sum it up in probably one sentence. I would think that the UNC has won the air and the ground war. And if I could break that out briefly, I think the UNC contacted the people, made serious inroads in terms of understanding, appreciating, and responding to the people's concerns. The major issues in Trinidad and Tobago, the state of the economy, the widening wealth gap, poverty and malnutrition and so on, and then the crime issue, healthcare and so on also related to that. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has led from in front with a powerful number of candidates and a tremendous communications campaign, a tremendous unmatched. And just another brief point on this one about the PNM. I think the PNM just never found itself in this campaign. It started with a false premise of all in and then moved to a new chapter while the old chapter, the former leader was there, and it was reactive. It was difficult for the PNM, Jerome and Professor, to launch a campaign to tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago what they will do to improve the quality of life of the people when their track record for the last 9.5 years is not one to shout and not to write home about. So to sum up my view, I think the UNC led from in front, great candidates, great campaign, stuck to script and so on, and won the air and the ground wars.
What do you think, Ken, like the change in leadership in the PNM? You think that had any a major impact in this election?
It did.
The voter surge
yeah.
we've seen in the UNC?
No, I've been writing. A lot of this goes back to one of the prime financiers of the PNM undertook a survey, sponsored a survey, which indicated that Dr. Rowley was not appealing to the electorate, and 3 ministers were not very attractive to the electorate. Those 3 ministers are no longer in senior ministerial positions. So it was decided to make a switch of leadership. But Mr. Young has never been involved in retail politics. He joined the party in 2010. He came from
2014.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2014, you're right, Professor. And he does not have a track record of retail politics, grounded with the common man and so on. And he was never able to get traction with the people to the point where mid-election, Jerome, they brought back the old chapter and they rebranded it new chapter. They appeared to be defending and unable to defend on key issues of the issues that pertain to the people of Trinidad and Tobago more than any other, the quality of life and crime and healthcare to an extent also. So they were defending, were unable to defend, and then they had a leader who is not a particularly strong orator or who does not have a track record of performance in Trinidad and Tobago. And it all got worse by several things. One, the news about the dragon gas came during the campaign, and of course there was no response to that. And then some of the prime endorsements. There were endorsements of John Jeremy. There were the crucial endorsement among the working masses of Iowa George. Never underplay the importance of that. Iowa George is he's a populist figure in Trinidad and Tobago, and there were several others. I thought the UNC also carried the fight in terms of social media, and in particular on TikTok and Instagram and so on. So the PNM, it appeared to me, never really had a response to, an effective response to all of this.
I want to turn to Professor Selwyn Kojo. Professor, you have made the case a little more specific in your editorials in the past couple of months, and you've been specific. You've said that, look, one of the main reasons the PNM should not be returned to office is because they have not taken care of their base that is black people. You were very, very specific on it. And what we've seen over the last couple of weeks with these articles, a lot of people have been talking about it, not just on social media, but all over Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that, in a way, has been responsible for a lot of the voter surge we've seen in the UNC, particularly with black voters. What has been your overall case for the People's National Movement and the United National Congress as a party? What has been your overall case you've been making?
Well, again, it's great to be on the set with my dear
Thank you.
buddies, Jerome Lewis and Ken Ali, folks and brothers whom I've known for quite a while. Before I give you the sense of the overall case that I've been making, I do think we have to speak about the atmosphere. For those who are in Canada, New York, and so on, today has been a glorious day. The sunshine has come out in all of its glory. It's almost set the stage for a new day. You may say it has set the stage for the rising sun. Because what has happened now,
Go ahead.
because what has happened now, to go back to the overall case, I think what we have today is the dawning of a new day. History is not simply stasis or circularity. Histories go from one stage to another. As I try to point out in my article on Sunday, if you look at the 20th century and you saw the various phases of social and political development in our country, you'd realize a guy like, say, Captain Arthur Cipriani, the barefoot man who was talking about barefoot people. The guy, in fact, was born in 1875, just as the dawning of the beginning of the 20th century. Now, what he was concerned about was a minimum wage for people. He was concerned more about old age pension. In fact, when he talked about old age pension, I remember my mother saying that my grandfather had called his wife and said, "Rose, you ever hear any stupidness? People walking and getting no money?" It was a new concept. It was ushering in a new day. After we had Cipriani and the Trinidad Working Party, you had a guy like Butler. And what Butler and Cola Renzi did was the first coming together of the working people in terms of the South and in terms of the oil belt, because the oil was the leading economy at the time, and the agricultural belt. Now, I live in Tagarigou all my life. You had using St. Madeleine down by you in Princess Town. We had Trinidad Sugar Estate in Orange Grove. And Orange Grove inculcated places like Densley and Paradise and El Dorado, and these were agricultural workers. And they also struck in unison with the oil field workers. And of course, ushered in a new day in terms of labor relations, more importantly, in terms of raising that unity that we had. And then, of course, you had Eric Williams, who brought, of course, independence and spoke to the dignity of black people. Stand up for your rights. He said, Massa they done, Sahib they done, and we must talk about a new dignity on the part of people. And what happened, of course, he lifted up the rural areas, even though I think that they lift the people in the urban areas, like Port of Spain, San Fernando, Port of Spain, where the PNM got its most strength, while the rural areas went to the PDP because there were agricultural workers in the rural areas. What you see now, I think, it's a new synthesis, because what we've seen, the coming together of not this, the engine force, I think, for the transformation of this party at this time. One can make the argument that up until now, to a certain degree, the UNC was a rather parochial party. But what has happened, the People's National Movement, which had its bulk of its foreign among Afro-American, Afro-Trinidadians, in fact, they betrayed that historical trust. In other words, black people threw their weight and so on behind the People's National Movement. But what happened, they took the vote of black people, and then once they won the elections, they took it over the 1%ers. So they became their masters. Now, people are not stupid. People always act in their own interests. And people know when their interest is being violated. And so step by step, black people recognize that their interest is being betrayed. and more importantly, that the People's National Movement was not working in their interests. They were working in the interests of the dominant class. And so therefore, they said, enough, too much, as Shakespeare said, enough no more, the tempest, 'tis not so sweet as it was before. And they moved on to a new realignment. What you found, I think, the engine, of course, I would say what Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC represent is a new synthesis taken to a higher level. And that means the inculcation of different groups to take us to a higher level of social development. And so what the UNC was able to capture and bring together, what Persad-Bissessar was able to bring together was a new formation, both social, political, and even cultural. If you look at the cultural shows, you see what's being portrayed. Rupati is singing, and then you said Iowa comes in, and then it's a new movement, a new mood. So it seems to me, you said, what's the overall case? I think we are at a new level. I made the case yesterday that, of course, we have had the father of the nation. And I made a case, I wrote something on multiculturalism, which had lived in San Fernando in about 2011 when the UNC had won. And I said quite clearly, and it's there, that what happened, unless we accept, both Africans and Indians accept the fact that Eric Williams is the father of the nation, we can't go any place, because that's the bedrock. Gandhi and Nehru are the father of the nation. Mandela is the father. You gotta have a father. But you can't live with a father alone. You must have a mother. And a certain kind of racial pushback. As Preventative was saying, here's Kamala Persad-Bissessar, who's had so much experience. She's been to UWI, she's been to Cave she's taken over the party, and you're saying a young fellow who just come in, who has absolutely no experience, and I hear stupid people, I won't call the name, saying that Young is more experienced, he's a world figure, and absolute nonsense. So my sense, Jerome, I think that's probably where I think the new emphasis lies, and the hope of Kamala will take us to a new level of social development.
But I want to throw this out to both you and Ken. So are you saying, Professor, that this election can be a turning point for the nation?
It will be, if it's handled properly. In other words, it is a turning point because, listen, okay, we know we've had the crime, but the major challenge in this country is how do we bring all the groups together, particularly the two dominant groups.
Right.
We've been together, but you always have to argue for the interracial unity. Williams talked about it, but I think Kamala is uniquely positioned to do it. Why? Because she's a woman. And two, because she's an Indian woman, and so therefore she has to bring that group in. So we have a new synthesis. So it seems to me that this is a unique opportunity to talk a little differently. More importantly, Kamala Persad-Bissessar is a caring woman. She says, you may have leaders before me, you may have leaders after me, but no one could love you. You ever hear Rowley say that? He barking all the time. He barking all the time. Grumping.
So,
come on now.
So Ken, a turning point. How you see this as a turning point for the nation? Because you've been covering politics for a long time. I mean, years. You've been from TNT Mirror to Guardian to just doing stuff all over.
And
how, in your own way, how do you see this as a turning point for the nation?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that and you put the historic perspective in it. In the mid-1970s, I was the labor reporter of a daily newspaper. Yeah. In the SWWTU, Seamen and Waterfront Workers Trade Union, its president general was a gentleman named Vernon Glean, who was a PNM government senator. He sat in the backbench, he never spoke, but note, he was a PNM government. The Public Services Association was led by Mr. James Manswell, who I'm not sure he was a senator, but he was heavily pro-PNM. And the urban trade unions were heavily, the NUGFW, Nathaniel Critchlow served in the...
Oh, Nathaniel, right from Maruka.
The CWU was led by Carl Tull, who served in the Senate. This is a seismic shift. I'm just adding to what Professor has said. I'm just building a little bit here on it, and I totally agree with everything he has said. But I'm saying that there's a seismic shift in the politics because the urban trade unions have now joined with the UNC. No, Professor also makes the point that people are looking after their own interests, and that's what life is about. That's what politics is about. There's a key thing here that when she is elected, Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has to manage expectations, and that is, among other things, a communications function and so on. But it is a major development in the politics. Managing the diversity of Trinidad and Tobago, the eminent Mr. Pandey said is the greatest challenge in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, for a small island of just over 1 million people, is extraordinarily diverse, very, very diverse. And managing it is going to take everything that Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has. But I also think she has the people at her side. And I am not underplaying the role of the artists when the Iowa George and the Swapi and all of those and the Drupati and so on. They speak to our people. We are very artistic people. We express ourselves and so on. At the victory tonight, you will hear people singing and the songs of our nation and so on. That's who we are. And she has brought together that I had never seen before. Right. The PNM platform does not have that. So, to summarize the point, I think she has served to unite the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We're on a high. There are going to be challenges in managing that and managing people's expectation and the state of the economy and delivering on promises of crime and so on. But we are at a historic high, and I think she's eminently qualified and well-placed to manage our diversity and keep us as a united people.
Right, if you're now joining us, this is the Code Yellow broadcast. Podcast, and we started just a few minutes ago. Joining me on set is Ken Ali, journalist Ken Ali on my right, and international scholar or son of the soil, Professor Selwyn Kojo. As we go through this evening, we'll be giving you updates from different constituencies. We'll be giving you the numbers as they come in, and you'll get a sense of where we are. We have some numbers just on the side from Tobago, but we have to clarify that before we actually give it out to you. We also want to welcome the thousands who are joining us on this live broadcast, and I'm sure that number is going to grow into the thousands across Trinidad and Tobago. This is the place everybody's been watching and will be watching tonight to find out who will become the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Professor Kojo, in this election, the United National Congress, they've joined, it's a coalition with the working class, number of trade unions. We've had the PSA, the OWTU. We've also had other parties, the PEP, Progressive Empowerment Party, and so on. How do you think all this has played out in the amalgamation, in giving life to what we see as this voter surge in the UNC for this election?
Well, that's just, I think the point I just made, and Ken sort of supplemented the point. He says, remember I started by saying that initially People's National Movement appealed to the urban folks, while the UNC and the PDP appeal to the rural folks.
Right.
Ken has just said, what he says that the unions who are now joining PDP are from the urban areas,
Right.
which is a very important point. So in other words, I would prefer to say, I don't like to be too much the working class, as I like to talk about the working people, because the nature of class consciousness is not at that side of politics. It's not as easy.
But I want to lay this situation out for both of you, right? We've had over the years, and I mean, the trade unions, leaders, I mean, you had weeks, Ken, you're going to know about that, getting into politics, but Eric Williams was still able to beat them, meaning that the leaders got into the politics, but they didn't get the workers to follow them. Is it different this time, looking at what we have on the ground?
Let me take a first shot at it. Yes, it's significantly different. George Weeks, and I cite George Weeks as one example, he fought elections at various times, including 1976 with the United Labour Front, and he lost. He fought in Pointe-a-Pierre, which is seen as the home of the, was seen as the home of the energy sector, and he lost. In 1966, the Workers and Farmers Party, led by Peter Farquhar, and included one Bastille Pandey, all lost. So the working masses, the working, I say class, but the working people, as Professor says, have never been in the mainstream of governance before, in a real way. We had a trade unionist, we became a prime minister, and so on. This is, to me, the closest that this is that is taking place. There's a real unity with the OWTU, which is a significant trade union and may play, and I anticipate and I hope they'll play a key role in the privatization of Petrotrin. This earlier attempt at privatizing Petrotrin is not a good measure, but that may be another discussion. So yes, the working masses, the working people are aligned with the UNC. That's a significant development, but it's a relationship that has, as I said earlier, has to be managed in a meaningful way as we go forward.
Professor, you said you don't see it as working class. You don't like to call them working class. What is your term or definition for the people who come out from like the industry and the ordinary man on the street who's, inside the politics and say, hey, we want to get this force, we want to have this working for all of us?
First of all, go and read Walter Roddy's book, The History of the Ghanese Working People. It was, of course, WPA was led by him and another colleague of mine from Cornell. What Walter says, the nature of the class consciousness had not risen to the level where it could be identified as a class in the sense in all of the terms. There were really working people who had reached a certain level. More importantly, to talk about a working class in a place like Trinidad or Grenada, that was the fourth of the Grenada Revolution. I know you know me, 60 people talk about working class and proletariat and bourgeoisie. And that's why Maurice Bishop was killed. They said he was a petit bourgeois, and the other guy who I don't remember his name now. He was the working. He was the one. Ford. Not Ford. Cord. He was supposed to be the Marxists and the Stalinists. Yeah. The only fallacy about that, I know you and you know me. 60,000 people, you can't make those differentiations because it hasn't developed in that way. You may have some money and so on. So I'm saying that one has to be very careful in terms of what has happened. You may even want to make that distinction between what's this guy? MFG?
David Abdullah.
MSJ.
Yes.
Now, what has happened is a significant break between David Abdullah, who wants to keep on talking about Marxism and workers' class and so on, and the fellows like Roger and others who really recognizes that we have to merge the interests and work together, that those artificial distinctions are really artificial in a small society. And so therefore, that's why I said we reach another stage. And so I think that Ken just made the point that Weeks lost because William was a populist leader. His interests cut across all those class interests. But what has happened now, of course, and they got beaten all the elections, as Ken would tell you. But now I think is a new, get my words, it's a new synthesis. And people are moving in a new direction, and they understand our interest is based on our common form of one, oppression and betrayal of the working people. Black and Indian people have been betrayed by the People's National Movement. And they've come together to say, listen, enough no more. It is not so sweet as it was before, as Osoro says in The Tempest.
Yeah.
Jerome, I just want to...
Of course, go ahead, Ken.
I actually credit Professor because
yes.
I read him religiously, I study him, I quote him in my articles. And for years he has been saying that the PNM has become alienated from the black masses.
No, it has betrayed the black masses.
That's his word.
And therefore become alienated.
Right. But he has been saying so.
Yes, been very consistent.
In fact, he opened my eyes to that reality too. And then the issue of recusals, which is a relevant thing. Now, I wrote about this recently because a gentleman from OWT named Mr. Dobson get a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act response. And that indicated that Stuart Young recused himself 137 times and Al-Rawi so many times.
Yes.
About 90-something.
I think it was 109, right?
Right.
Yes.
In response to that, I know my article went to Dr. Rowley. In the Woodford Square launch of the PNM, he said they get their people in the media, well, you're talking about me, to criticize Mr. Young and so on, and that what he did was recuse himself. Listen, If I sit in the cabinet or you sit in the cabinet, Professor, we don't have to recuse ourselves
Right.
because we're not attached to big business. But every time he defended himself on these issues, he made it worse for himself. And the masses understood. And that ties in, gentlemen, and our viewing audience, that ties in with the widening wealth gap. I have written, and Professor has written about it. There's a huge widening wealth gap. We've seen the corporate sector has made billions and billions and billions. When Mrs. Prasad demitted national office in 2015, the food import bill was $5 billion. It is now $8-point-something billion, and it is run by a small cartel. The banking sector is making much more money, and so on. And the people, the ordinary people of Trinidad and Tobago, have taken note of that, while their pockets have gotten more and more scant.
Right. Gentlemen, I want to drift a bit to talk a little bit about the smaller parties, what we call in our election third forces. Now, there's this notion, Ken and Professor, that if someone votes for the People's National Movement, a black person that is, it's racial voting. And if a person of East Indian descent votes for the UNC, it's considered racial voting. A lot of these smaller parties have come on board, Ken and Professor, claiming to have some kind of race-neutral background that doesn't represent either of the majority races in the country. How do you describe that narrative, that if you vote for UNC, it's a racial vote, if you vote for the PNM, it's a racial vote, and therefore there has to be something else that can bring the country together? You agree with that?
No. Well, we spent the last few minutes disabusing people's minds of that. I want to direct my answer specifically to the point you made about the two small parties. I have a particular disappointment in Ms. Michaela Pandey. She appears to want to take the baton from her eminent father, and make no bones about it, Basidio Pandey was an outstanding leader in Trinidad and Tobago. But I've never seen Miss Pandey identify with the issues of the working masses. In the 1975, when there was this famous march that was aborted, and so on, the police commissioner sent baton-wielding police officers to beat the marches and so on. One of the things they were campaigning for, George Weeks and Basidio Pandey were campaigning for the nationalization of what they called then the commanding heights of the economy, which was then Texaco and now Petrotrin. Tell me when Michaela Pandey has stood up against the Petrotrin being granted to a foreign firm instead of OWT and local interests. Tell me when she has been involved with the struggle of the, to use a father's term, the struggle of the working masses.
But even Ken, just to add to what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. Just to add to what you're saying. In this election, you've had over 160 candidates, all getting almost equal weight in terms of coverage as political parties. But can you seriously start a political party 6 weeks before an election compared to the UNC that has been going on for the last decade? We've had over 300 or more Monday night forums. When you look at the numbers for the streams, we would have surpassed over 200,000. In fact, we have broken all broadcast records. And when we go live on traditional TV, they were number one in prime time, wherever that ran, like 8 o'clock prime time or 7. It was high audience levels on prime time broadcasts. Can voters seriously take someone who comes 6 weeks before an election and say, well, you know, I have a political party, join me, here I have candidates? Can we take that seriously?
I think is an addiction of many people to this thing of electoral politics. If you go back to 1976, we had no opposition in Parliament from 71 to 76. So people were thirsty and hungry to participate in the democratic process in 1976. And there were about a dozen political parties. There were parties that broke from parties. There was the DLP and the SDLP. There was the WINP, and then there's a party called LAP, with Dr. Perro that broke from WINP, and so on. There were parties upon parties upon parties. The country seems to go through these, and the short answer to your question is no. And we have not elected an independent candidate for many, many years.
Right.
The small parties never survived and never succeeded. I wrote recently about a gentleman named Ramlev Sampat Mehta, who turned up every 5 years to fight, and religiously, and I think he knew he wasn't going to win.
He wasn't going to win.
He would get at most 4% of the vote, the popular vote, and so on. So it may be a form of addiction. Maybe it gives them media coverage and so on. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it is something we probably wouldn't get rid of quite easily.
Professor, I mean, Ken says it may be an addiction, but you see it a little differently. Just a while ago, you mentioned MSG, and you were very specific in saying that, look, what is going on there is not politics. By having an hour, by having an hour speech online is not politics.
It's not.
How do you see that in terms of the constant failure of the third forces to make any serious impact on the politics?
And they will never do. And
They will never do.
Never. I mean,
Okay,
but what is
that's
what is the
interesting.
historical evidence? They never did.
Yes.
So they could conclude, therefore, in all likelihood, unless things changes, that they will.
Right.
But I wanted to get back to the point that you made about the racial nature of the voting,
Yes.
and which all these people, and I think you're good on that, which all people decline that somehow, if somehow we could move the racial voting, it would be a paradise. And that somehow there's something lacking us because Indians vote, etc., and black votes in a certain way. I think the miscalculation there is very simple.
Yes.
Is that people are multidimensional. Jerome Lewis does not have one identity. We all have multi-identities. And what you have, somebody who votes for the PNM or for the UNC is not voting for them primarily because they're Indian. It's not a primary, or somebody votes for the PNM primarily because they're black. They're also in their own interests. In other words, that people is not a monolithic thing. I'm going to vote now for UNC because I'm black. No, there are other kinds of interests. And so therefore, at the same time, when you vote, you're voting in your own best interest to be sure that the party who you vote, like the states, when the blacks vote or the Jews vote for the Democratic Party, they expect to get something from it. They don't vote because they're Jewish or because they're black. They vote because it's in their own best interest to do so. Point one. Point two, people identify in certain kinds of groups. So you can't say I shouldn't vote for PNM because I'm black or shouldn't vote for UNC because I'm Indian. That's nonsensical. But what you expect that when you vote for them is not just simply because they're black, but because they want to advance their own interests. But then there comes a time where they say, like, your interest in the working people or your interest in your betterment takes precedence over your blackness or your Indianness. Now, what we've had at this moment, the question of, say, black people, I want to get back, because I know about anybody else, I kind of chip it here. I don't know about the POPPG.
Well,
I know about the PPG and never does. I know about an interest I speak of. And people would say, if I put my foot on Ken Ali's neck, you can say what? Get it off. I don't care if you're pink.
I would say, I can't breathe.
Yes, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Exactly the case. Get it off.
Yeah, I might be the first to come and help you.
Get it off. And so, therefore, you don't have to educate people about that. They know what's in their own interests. And so, therefore, they vote in certain kinds of ways. This is not the first time it happened. NAR beat the PNM.
Yes.
They won't vote. It's black. They say you are not represented. They vote for somebody they're not confined to their blackness or confined to their Indianness. They're really saying we are people in society, and at certain well-defined moments, we make certain decisions.
All right, folks, this is the Cordialo podcast, and we have some results coming in. Ken Ali is going to give us that. We have it on the screen.
683 for the TPP candidate so far.
Yes.
In Tobago East, as you're seeing on your screen, 259 for the PNM candidate. There are, of course, other candidates who are not faring particularly well. So these are not necessarily early results. These are several boxes would have been counted by now. A significant lead for the TPP in Tobago East. We'll get some results in a little while. Tunapuna. Tunapuna, the UNC's candidate, the very popular Mr. Alexander, 248 against the incumbent PNM, Esmond Ford, 167. So those would be some early boxes from the marginal seat of Tunapuna, the seat currently held for 2 terms by Esmond Ford. In Arangua, St. Joseph, incumbent Terence Dial Singh, 74, a major lead at this point for Devesh Maharaj of the UNC, 234. 234 versus 74 for the incumbent Terence Dial Singh.
Well, I see Professor Kojo smiling, Ken. When you mentioned
Which one
when
got
you
him smiling the most?
When you mentioned Ford and Alexander in Tunapuna, because he voted in Tunapuna.
Okay, good.
I mean, of
smiling,
course, those results are not statistically important right now. Because it's all a ballot of probably 26,000 people.
Indeed.
So they are not really important. But of
Well,
course,
the early trends.
Yes.
The early trends.
Particularly Tobago. That's a big
for
lead,
Tobago,
right?
I can't.
Tobago looks like
I
a
don't
big
talk
lead,
about what I talk about. I don't know about the Tobago story, but I know in the
No,
trend.
but you're right to express.
Yes.
I don't know, not cynicism or skepticism, but these, everybody knows that. It depends on where these boxes come from. So it may come from a Jerome stronghold,
Right.
in which case he will look good, or it may come from a Ken
If you were
strong.
to
wanna-
ask,
Go ahead.
if you were to ask me though, what do I think in terms of both my just basic sense of politics and get involved in politics and get in and feel in the air, because you see, I think you all ignored me when I said today is a glorious day, the sunshine is up, there's a new element in the air, new natural mystics blowing through the air.
You sound like Bob Marley.
It's Bob Marley.
Yes, Professor,
So
we
I'm
didn't
not
ignore you.
about what
I'm
the
a
200
natural
I'm not about the
mystic.
254, the 236. I'm about the fact that there is something that's happening. Sometimes this can be empirical. It's not about empiricism. It's what you feel and what you understand the politics to be. And my understanding of it, that they, of course, would represent themselves, but it's a different feeling as you walk around the country. And I think that's what
That's the macro picture.
I go down we went out to Naparima by you today to vote.
Yes.
And you saw the evidence, people coming in. They're cool, eh? Well, let me say one thing that you take me on.
Sure.
The most glorious thing of this country is that when you see people voting, it's in love and friendship.
Yes.
You go to Jamaica, you can't do that with the PNP, Master Bandy Party, the PNC, and because it's 1,000 man kill and so on. We have a different atmosphere. We believe in democracy. We're willing to let people live and so on. I think that's the most important thing for me in terms of what's happening today. That sense of camaraderie and kind of civic duty in a way with dignity and pride, etc.
Professor and Jerome,
Go ahead.
permit me to add to that, and I want to heartily endorse what Professor said, and to add to that, because this has been generally a very peaceful campaign, a fun-loving campaign.
Yes.
I saw, to use a Trini word, I see red and yellow winding up on
Bam,
each other.
Taking a drink, taking a wine.
That's
Yes.
how we live.
No, and that's uniquely Trinidadian and Tobagonian.
It has
Understand
had no,
It really
no
is.
violence like you would have in Jamaica.
No.
None. Absolute none.
that. All right, so in African countries.
Yes.
Or even certain Indian countries.
Yeah, and-
ethnic groups against ethnic groups.
Indeed.
Religious groups against no.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
continue, Jerome.
Yeah,
sorry.
I want to just raise something that you know that I observed during this campaign, Ken and Professor. A lot of commentators have been saying, look, none of the parties have offered a way forward, no plans. And I just want to just hope the camera can see this, right? This is UNC, healthcare reform, criminal justice reform, education policy direction, and the workers' agenda. All this has been put out, not just in the newspaper, it has been online, Ken and Professor, for months. The manifesto. Yet, we've seen a lot of commentary out there saying this party doesn't have a plan. How do you all respond to Ken, you are a writer, and you talk about balance. You talk about putting out there the facts. Here it is.
Yeah.
All 5 pieces put out for the last couple of months. Online, it has been every single candidate, including the political leader,
All right.
has said,
Jerome-
here's what the UNC
Jerome,
will do once you win the election.
My first point in the discussion this evening, I spoke about the UNC winning the air and the ground war.
So, yeah, I just...
No, that's pertinent to this.
Right. So I just wanted to add really, just before you answer, what it is exactly are people asking for? That's the question.
Okay. Well,
what are they
you
asking
know,
for if you have all this and you're saying nothing exists?
You're saying that people, and you may be suggesting that a large number of people are saying nothing exists. I don't know if a large number of
It
people
has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know you can't walk down the street, crime. You don't
That-
want no program to tell you that.
Yeah.
And you're saying home invasions. We don't want any more of that. No matter how well articulated these programs are, people fundamentally understand, as I think John Jeremy says, it's the society is
Yeah.
breaking down.
A failing state.
Forget all of this. People know instinctively
Yes,
that we
things are
need
not right.
something new. And that is where it seems to me the basis of the society is going. Let me say last point. So I don't, this thing and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
don't mean very much to me or anybody else. They know gutturally that it's not working for them. It is not working for them, and therefore we must do something new.
I agree
Too
with you,
much pride.
Professor.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, if you're now joining us on the Code Yellow broadcast, we are live from the UNC headquarters in Grand Central, Shogunas. On set with me is Professor Selwyn Kojo, journalist Ken Ali, and we have joining us our multimedia producer, the man who has put this magnificent set together for us today, and he has been the main driver of all the meetings
Yes,
streaming
indeed.
across Trinidad and Tobago,
Not
giving us clean video, giving us clean, clear audio for every podcast, every stream for all the meetings. And this has been going on for like 10 years. Kevin Gibbs, ladies and gentlemen, is here with us. And he, in fact, responded to Stuart Young when Young made this statement, Professor, on, I think, one of the platforms about black people coming to the UNC and being paid. And he, Kevin,
And I spoke-
issued one of the boldest, bravest commentary on it, and I thought it was so good.
I spoke,
Excellent.
I talked
So-
to the man about it, and he tell you, then you recognize him. But I know what
This is the man. This is the man. So Kevin Gibbs is here with us.
This
So
is way too
Kevin,
much props. Way too much
Yes.
props. Way too much props.
you've been here with all of this stuff, from the streaming to the meetings. You've been hearing people talking, and you responded at that time, and I could tell it came from your heart. Tell
Well, of
us
course.
what's going on.
As most people would know, I am accustomed to working from behind the scenes. That is my forte, putting things together, logistics, etc. Right? But I took personal insult.
Check your mic.
I took personal insult to what the man was saying. I mean, what are you saying? That I can't think for myself? That I'm some kind of prop that the UNC puts in front because because Jerome, top black people they say I'm not black enough. So now I'm
Yep.
too black.
Yep.
Now the script flip. And I don't think people understand what it takes as, well, not so young anymore, but a young black man to decide, I want to join the UNC. I want to be part of this. I have had many experiences. People don't know. I've often said that my own people are more racist than anybody else in the country, meaning black people. Right? But you see, we have cornered the market on oppression. Nobody can't. We are always the oppressed. We don't oppress anybody.
Yep.
That's how we are in Trinidad.
And that's a relevant point you're making.
But
Because
I want to tell a story.
Go ahead.
Let me tell a story.
Go ahead.
I am walking through what was Hilo back then in St. Augustine.
Yes.
I had just finished run as a counselor, to be a counselor in Oswaldville, Tunapuna.
Right.
And I see a woman in her 60s or 70s, a retiree, of Afro-Trinidadian descent, saw me walking through it, and stopped to say, "Your name is Kivan Gibbs?"
Yeah.
I say, "Yes." She said, "You run for Oswaldville, Tunapuna against Esmond Ford." So I smiled. I thought,
Yep.
I said, yes, it was me. I said, it was a close race, but Esmond won the race. She said, "You are a traitor to your race." Professor Kojo, I didn't even know how to respond to that.
Well, Kojo could respond to it. Kojo,
I personally could not
no,
respond
and
to
I'm
that.
being very serious. Kojo could respond because, let me tell you, right, he has had the most backlash from the position that he's taken with this entire dossier he's been writing in the Express for the last couple of months.
Well,
from
I read it,
from
the comments.
you're reading it and you're taking
yeah.
parts of it, right?
Yeah, but he
No big deal.
experiences it.
But he has had the most backlash from his own relatives and even friends. In fact, it has become so bitter that people actually have not become violent, but they've said, no, we can't be friends with you, Kojo, if you go with them Indian.
But stop again.
And he knows that.
They say if the
Right.
UNC lose, don't come
Yeah,
back
they
here.
told him that if
Have
the
her
UNC
come to
lose,
me
they said,
house.
Kojo, you got to leave the country right
Come to
away.
me
Right away.
house. I
Yes.
said, I got to get out. I said, boy, I live in Tagra for 80 years, boy. How you could tell me to get out? But the question is, I don't know that they're much more racist. I think we are equally, if you want to put it that way, or we have not cornered the market on oppression. I think what it is, for the longest while, we have been the dominant group. Now that's changing. As a dominant group, you felt you had certain kinds of privileges, which is like white privilege. What's happening in states right now, and that's been challenged. And now white folks have to assert their privilege. And what has happened, we've been the dominant group. And now we've seen our privilege or whatever being, why this race is not only about a new dimension, This is a life and death thing, If People's National Movement had the power have been having the power to give up all of these jobs and these offices and these whatever, you are about to lose that. Election is about I voting, you voted. Sorry.
Professor, could I have a quick question to ask? Why are we no longer the dominant?
Statistically, it is. The last elections, when the statistics came out, I had both a statistician from my school and a mathematician from a university in New Jersey, and said, do a projection, and we could say statistically that all the black folks who were the leading group will not be the leading group. By probably 5 or 10 years, the East Indian group will be the greater group. So that's statistical.
then let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Andrew, feel free
No,
to say-
yeah, I like how
Hold
Kojo
on.
watering down the thing.
No,
But
no,
go
no,
ahead.
hold
You
on,
ask
hold
him.
on. Let me go.
Kojo
Here's
watering
my
down the
question.
thing.
If-
Right? This,
if-
given
if- hold on,
this,
Joe.
go
Okay.
ahead.
If we love to have this conversation about race politics in Trinidad,
Yes.
people that just go by the tribe, etc., etc. And we like to say, well, the PNM party is the Afro-Trinidadian party, and the UNC is an Indo-Trinidad party. Now, that really and truly does have to do about where the parties started. One started out of Port of Spain, the other one started
Yes.
out of the Southland, right? But here's my question to you. If the PNM has been in power for 80% of our independence, I mean, we've had the NAR, they did 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, you
The-
could cancel that out. Cancel that out, yes.
Mr. Pandey did 5 years. Kamala Persavisa did 5 years. That's 15 in total. I'd rather do the math to tell you how long the PNM has been there. How come it do have Afro billionaires in Trinidad?
No, well,
Or
let me
multi-millionaires.
let me add to that to answer that.
That people would want to
Right.
see. Well, the Indians have money, and the Syrians have money, and this one have money, and that
Yes.
one have money. But our economic value is low.
But Kevin, let me answer that before Professor takes it, because he have a more academic view on it.
Right.
This is clear cut. This is clear cut, Kevin. And you're on the
as
board,
opposed
right?
to academic. Go ahead.
You, the people who are telling black people not to vote for Indians or the Indian party, right?
Supposed Indian party.
Proposing Indian, but I'm just saying, when I listen to the red platform during this election, they're vociferous, and they've been very direct in the messaging to blacks. Don't go and vote for them people, because that's the end of the world. That's the end of your life, right? Them people are talking about, Kevin, in a broad sense, manages 88% of the financial and economic sector in the country. The people, black people that is, probably constitute about 70 to 80% of the labor force for fast food outlets that pay minimum wage and below. So I'm just answering your question as to why you have no millionaires, because and outside of that, if it's managed by the state, it's CPEP, which is short term, so you have nowhere to go with that. You could never buy a new car, never own a house.
But Jerome, that still gets away from the main problem.
And the politicians are telling you, don't vote for them people. And that is part of the reality. Professor Kojo could give you his take on
Yeah,
how
but
he sees it.
that-
But that is how it is.
I understand what you're saying, but that still takes away from the main problem.
What's that?
My problem is that the government, the PNM in power,
I need to interrupt just a little bit, just to give
Sure.
Chaguanas East, Vandana Mohit 2664, Rishi Sukai 985, NTA, PF, and an independent candidate. But Vandana Mohit, the incumbent, way ahead of Rishi Sukai, the PNM's candidate. The electorate there is 27,729. So that Rishi Sukai, I know a professor is saying that, and we all said that it may be early indication.
No, but the gaps is wide.
The gaps are
And
wide.
where these are
Gaps are
states,
Yes.
that's
No.
indicative of that.
but
No, I just-
I jump here, because I'm going to jump out of this conversation.
No, you,
I actually came here only to say. So, we've been moderating the entire stream,
Of course.
right? We have close to 7,500 people watching us live
Fantastic.
when I just stepped away. But somebody asked a question. They said, why is the panel sounding like we went already? And that's what I came to ask. I was like,
So, well, we know that we just said, or I certainly said, it's not empirical alone on all the polls and so on. My feeling, I can't talk for me, I can't talk for the panel. I have said, given what I've seen, what I've heard and moving around, it appears to me that they have won. Why they have won, it may be, I am saying about 24 votes, because the panel has always been playing off the back foot. If the last thing, what is the PNM's policy? To criticize Kamala, tell how she, I think Rowley said she's mentally not ready, etc.
Camille said she wasn't fit to lead.
Not fit to set her mentally and so on.
Yes.
All right? And this young boy who had 10 years or whatever, he has more experience. He's internationally known. Nobody knows.
I think Ken has
Professor
some results
Tobago
for us here
East,
going in Tobago, yes.
the TPP candidate, David Thomas 1154, Ayana Webster Roy of the PNM, the incumbent 585. 1154 against 585. The electorate there is 23,853. So we have almost 2,000 votes. Watson Duke of the PDP, he's also a candidate of interest, 81, and then there's Wade Karut 7 and Balfour 11. So we have almost 2,000 of a constituency of 23,851.
You realize the state making some money tonight? With the amount of people losing the deposit.
No. But
Guys are good,
but it goes to the question.
Thank you, Kevin.
It goes to the question. I'll come back to your question, which we didn't give me time. You're running and leaving. Come back and ask it.
Yeah, he'll come back, yes.
It goes back to the point that we talk about these small minority people. People are not stupid. They know the race is between two well-structured parties.
Yes.
And these people are irrelevant.
Prof, just let me step in again. Couva South, Barry Padarath, 1150 to Aaron Mohammed of the PNM, 211. The PF candidate, Imran Gokul, 0 so far. So 1150 to 211. The electorate, they're quite large, 30,975, but a significant lead for Barry Padarath.
And that's just the problem. I think Jerome raised it. These parties have not... People are listen, my belief in terms of democracy, that people are fundamentally sensible. They know and understand. They have to go to university or college. They know they're two or either or. The other people, Duke and the others and the Zero, they know have really nothing to offer. And so therefore they are irrelevant. And so therefore the race are between the two major parties, each offering something.
And while we would argue that it's still early, maybe early in terms of trends, Professor, you're absolutely correct that we could dismiss the small parties as being a force tonight. And unlikely to make a difference in terms of splitting votes anyway. We will see, maybe San Fernando
maybe
West,
in a tight election,
Tunapuna,
maybe in a tight election, but normally.
But with 0 and 11 and 9 and so on, I don't want to call them nuisance parties.
No, I put it a little bit more delicately. That's all we need to know, because all's in.
I like that. Yes. So you're watching the Code Yellow podcast, and we are broadcasting live from the UNC headquarters in Grand Central Shogunas. Just to give you a little idea as to what is happening outside. Well, I think the streets outside of the headquarters very shortly, I have to get some feedback, probably would be blocked off, because when we came in at around 5 o'clock this evening, Professor,
Yes,
I think at around 5 o'clock, the security told us that the streets would be closed for the duration of the night because of the tight squeeze. And I want to say, Ken, I think when all these different trucks begin to come in and constituents begin to come in from the different locations, I think we're going to have a swarm of people here tonight as we continue to move on. Tell us, you have some a key race. Yes.
Wilfred Morris of the UNC, 1284. Beatrice Bridgelal of the PNM, 555. And Professor, hear this one, the Patriotic Front candidate, Brittany Williams, 0.
That is not...
That's what I'm saying.
Let me just...
these are early...
let me correct that. It's not Wilfred, right? It's Nicholas Morris.
Yeah, but apparently...
is it...
Maybe Wilfred is his formal name.
His formal name?
But let's just Mr. Morris at this point.
Okay, so
right? And just let me say this, Professor, before you jump in. 29,346 is the electorate in Mayaro. 1284 to 555 in Mayaro in favor of the UNC. Aranguez, St. Joseph. These may be. We said this earlier. I think Devesh Maharaj of the UNC 234, Terence Yalsing 74. The candidates for PF, NTA, and THC 0 each. So 234 against 74. The electorate in Aranguez and Joseph 28,873.
1 second. Before they announce.
Right. So. Yeah, of course. We'll tell you more about that. So. Just to give you a sense of what is happening inside here at the headquarters, we have, I believe, all the television stations inside of the room here, just behind us, behind this set. All the major streaming services, they are carrying this podcast right across the country, and each television station, they are tabulating the numbers and taking it right back to their various broadcast houses. So it's a hive of activity going on here, and I'm sure as we continue to move on throughout the night, bringing more numbers and the results, It's going to be an exciting time here, I believe, Professor Kojo. What is, how are you feeling now that based on what you're seeing
I know
right now?
In terms of, I know the mining report parties had not much to say, and so therefore,
Kumoto Manzanilla, some numbers are coming in. 243 for the UNC candidate, 42 for the PNM candidate. 243 to
Yes.
42. Of course, that is what you would consider a safe seat for the UNC, but very instructive. It comes to mind here. Campaigning in Moruga Tableland about a week and a half ago, Mr. Young said his survey had indicated that Komoto Manzanilla, the PNM, was rising and they had a chance of winning. Now, having said that, we want to be cautious in saying these are early votes yet. 243 to 42.
So, do we have any key election alerts again, Ken?
Couva South, I think we said that, 1150 to 211. I think those are among the latest. I'll intervene in a little while again once we have new figures.
Right, so it's busy around here. I'm seeing Komoto Manzanilla. You did that before, right?
Yes,
So we
just
have,
did,
yes, 42 for the PNM and 243 for the United National Congress. But Ken, as we look on at these numbers, you have been through this over the years, providing coverage and seeing numbers coming. How do you feel about what you're seeing now on the spot?
The first thing
without giving
Yeah.
major high expectations like Professor.
Yeah, the first thing is, in terms of time, 8:30,
Yes.
we are where you'd expect it to be. The early votes coming in, and they begin counting just after 6. The early votes,
Yes.
one expects in an hour's time, because there's going to be a flood shortly, a huge flood. In an hour and a half, we'll have more than clear trends. The early indications are that the UNC is faring very well in the seats. It was expected to fare well in the early indication. Myro, there was some trepidation after the issues with Mr. Parry. It appears
Yes.
that Nicholas Morris is doing very well. TPP, there was a lot of anticipation that the TPP would do well in Tobago East. It has already started to do well. There was also the view that it's going to be closer in Tobago West, and that seems to be materializing also. Everything else is as one anticipated. Maybe I could just put an asterisk on Chaguanas East. The PNM had hoped that they would do better there. They did some works with community centers and so on in Enterprise, and paved roads and gave away hampers and so on. But the early indicators are that Vandana Mohit, who's extremely well liked in the constituency, is not only holding a lead, but a significant lead.
what are the numbers there? In that,
I need to get back to
okay.
it, and I will do that in a short while.
Thank you.
Yeah, so folks, you're watching the Code Yellow podcast live from UNC headquarters in Grand Central, Chaguanas. On set is our journalist Ken Ali and Professor Kojo, and we're just going through all the numbers. Just to remind you that we have a live stream of 7,500 so far just watching online, and I'm sure that's going to grow as we go through the night. And we're going to keep you updated with some key election alerts. Let's take a look at Chaguanas East. Ken, we have a key election
Yes.
alert again. Give us that.
2664 for Vandana Mohit, we were just speaking about her, and 985 for Rishi Sukai, the PNM's hope. He comes from a business family and so on, and the PNM did a lot of work there. I was just talking about it in Enterprise. But Professor and Jerome, we could suggest now that this is a most comfortable lead.
The trends,
Yeah.
the trends, it's
Yeah.
trending.
What do you make of the trends, Professor, now that you're seeing some of
No,
these
well,
polling stations coming in? Because I know Ken, a short while ago, was saying that, look, usually by 8:30, you could pick up some signs, right? But he says, let's give it like 30 minutes again,
Yeah, yeah, I think-
and we should be all clear.
I think that's
Right?
what's
30
happening
minutes,
now.
yeah.
What's happening now? These cops are taking the boxes back to certain places, even though they've given the results at the whatever booth there are, and then taking it back. In next half an hour, by an hour, we have a sense of what's going on. But I think it looks good now in terms of what we are seeing. And I think, Ken, your simple thoughts about what's happening in Tobago with East and West. What are you seeing? How you?
I don't have the figures with me, but in East, the TPP has a comfortable lead. In the West, the PNM has a narrow lead. And that is what we were
But if you
hearing on the
slip,
ground.
Not if you slip.
Yeah.
If you get one, you are happy.
Absolutely. Now, in Couva South, when we
Right.
spoke about that, a significant lead. Jerome, just an observation. I noticed as the evening progresses, Professor Smile is broadening, getting
Yes.
bigger and bigger. Have you noticed that?
Of course.
No, but you see, but I've made my prediction from the
Remember
beginning.
he said, Ken. Remember he said, Ken, that they told him he has to leave tomorrow. You know?
No, what?
So it doesn't look that way anymore.
He's trying not to extend the ticket.
No,
Trust
no.
me.
All right.
I started by saying
He's trying not to extend that ticket, Ken. I know that
I
for sure.
began, Ken, by saying it's been a glorious day.
A lot is
And
hanging.
you all see this rise of the sun.
trying not to
rising
extend the
sun.
And you see, Jerome, he has lived in Takarigo for 80 years.
Oh, God. Oh.
It
It's
is,
difficult
yeah.
to get up now
Yes.
and leave. Anyway, on a serious note, Couva South.
key election alert
Barry
again. Tell
Padarat,
us.
1150 to 211 for the PNM candidate. Again, that is UNC stronghold.
So, yeah.
And it's going to remain in the hands of the hard-working and venerable Barry Padarat, who is the party organizer of the UNC. So he's heading straight back into Parliament. 1150 to 211, but that trend is expected.
We expect that to keep
Yeah.
on going where it's
Yeah.
going.
So in a sense, gentlemen, we're watching for Tunapuna,
Yeah.
we're watching for La
Saint-
Hoqueta,
What about-
Talparo, we're watching
What about Saint
Mayaro, St. Joseph,
Yeah.
San Fernando West, Toko,
Toko.
And
Sangre Grande.
Sangre.
Are these the main ones, Ken? We're
Those are
watching
the-
to see
did
what
you
the trends
say,
are.
did you say Moruga Tableland?
Yep.
no, he
Right.
did say,
You have
but,
to add that
Moruga
to-
Table and
yeah.
but if St. Joseph and Tunapuna breaks for us,
Yes.
it be all whole.
Yes, yeah,
And you tell me
absolutely.
why I have a broad smile on my
I said,
And you want to give us another one, right?
yeah. I don't know if you're slipping or I said if it breaks for us.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is a
I
partisan
never heard him
broadcast.
say us, you know.
Us in the
He said-
sense that, hey, the finger, the finger to the first time in my life.
Of course.
All right, go ahead.
Prof, you showed an interest
Let's
again
get
in
a key race alert from Tobago East, Ken. Just give us that.
1154
Yes.
versus 585. Having said that, those are the numbers we had a few minutes ago. So that's just a repeat of that. 1154 to 585, a significant lead for the TPP over the incumbent. And that has been, Jerome and Professor, the prediction all along from the pundits on the ground in Tobago. They were saying that the TPP has the lay of the land in Tobago East at least and would win. I didn't know if they said win comfortably, but win. And this is a significant lead.
It has to be comfortable because when we lost the seat by 2 or 3 votes during the election, because they didn't sign the presiding officer hadn't signed the ballot. So if you got 2 or 3 now,
Yes.
15 is good enough.
We suffered a fate with that before in a local election.
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
indeed.
But I want to ask you, gentlemen, like in the absence of any polling that be during the election, most of this stuff has been more emotional than scientific. People saying it might be a landslide. You could expect this. They look at the crowds for the PNM, the crowds for the UNC, and they're saying, well, maybe it could trend this way, maybe it could trend this way. But tell us, Ken, we have a key election alert, Ken? Tell us what's going on.
Chaguanas West,
Yes.
the UNC's candidate, Mr. Gosain, 4,394. 4,394. The PNM's Mr. Mahabir, 273. And the PF candidate, 122. Now, this is the seat formerly represented by Dinesh Rambali.
Yes.
And there were some people, I'm not among those, who may have wondered whether there would have been some fallout over the
Yes.
Rambali issue. Clearly, this does not indicate that.
But you remember
And
when
I guess before you come in, Professor, just to add to what you're saying, Ken, because he as well was part of the 5-member team that went up
Yes.
at the internal elections, including with Parry. So you're not really seeing much of a dent or any kind of
But Jerome,
euphoric
he did more than that.
lead.
He joined the PNM's campaign. So clearly, from the evidence we are seeing here, he hasn't helped the PNM's camp. In that seat.
But is that really joining a campaign in the last
he
3
did.
days?
He campaigned for them.
Look,
Mr.
look a man who
Mr.
came from the bowels
Kenali,
of PNM. He could tell you.
Mr.
Can you
Kenali,
join the PNM in 3 days, Professor Kota?
Mr. Kenali,
Is that-
I want to say one
Is
thing
that,
to
I
you.
mean,
When
I
you
don't
talk-
know what
Professor
you're
could
going to say. It's a broader smile.
Professor
No, no,
could
smile
tell,
is broadening.
he could tell us that. I mean, he knows the PNM. Could have someone join the PNM in
Answer-
3 days and make an
answers
impact?
absolutely not.
Professor?
Absolutely
I mean,
not.
please. I mean,
However,
doesn't make sense.
you do one thing which I think you should remember. There's a fellow called Ramesh Lawrence Mirage,
Yes,
Mr. Trevor Sudama, and Mr. Mirage.
Yes.
When they fought the elections, they were won by thousands and thousands.
Yes.
And when they formed their party, they went home
Yes.
crying. They couldn't understand
Yes.
how come the people that vote for them.
Indeed.
So it's a question of the party and the party's clout.
And then there was, for a while, not to the extent of Ramesh Maharaj, but there was Hulsi Bagan.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
So the point is that
The party is an institution.
the parties are an institution,
Yeah.
and people are sensible enough to follow the parties. Go ahead, sorry.
But you know what this has also brought out, Ken? Do you have a key election
No,
alert?
I don't.
What this has also brought out tonight, you know, like a couple of years back, gentlemen, you know, people were saying, well, boy, the UNC can't win nothing, and you can't win with Kamala, right? But I don't think she has ever been given the credit for holding the party together for the last decade. Despite all this stuff going on with Rambali and Parry and internal elections and all the different kinds of friction you've had inside there, she's been able to hold it together. And not just hold it together, but to create this ballistic counterforce.
Yes.
It's a ballistic counterforce to the PNM that we're seeing now trending these voters, creating the voter surge and trending at 20 minutes to 9 on election night, trending in a particular direction. That should count for something.
Absolutely.
Right?
I like your
Yes?
choice of words, especially the word ballistic, and you're right. It was been strategic leadership. She made key decisions at the appropriate time, and those decisions included naming of candidates, not only the timing of it, but the candidate, Roger Alexander, has been a bombshell candidate by any stretch. I know Professor wants to jump in.
no, I simply want to say that I think the chief thing about
Gentlemen, we are about to declare our first seat for the night. But
Okay, we have
I
a
want to
key
tell you-
election
No,
alert.
we
and
have-
gen-
we have
hold on.
key
We have a
election-
former.
key
We
election
have a key
and you
election
have a
alert,
chairman
and ladies and
who-
gentlemen,
because our chairman does
There's a
that.
method to the madness.
All right, thank you.
our multimedia,
let them bring you on.
our
Let them bring you on.
multimedia specialist, our multimedia specialist, Mr. Kevin Gibbs, has a key election alert.
All
That's
right.
how we do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's how we do it. You don't just come
You don't
on.
jump on the set.
Yeah. You don't wash your foot and jump in.
You know that's my style every time.
Yeah, go
Don't wash your
ahead,
foot
go
and jump
ahead,
in.
go ahead.
Always my style.
Key election alert. Tell us, Kevin.
Well, I want to tell you all, this
Yes.
will come as no surprise to anybody. The first seat that has been declared for the night is, please look at the screen.
Wow.
Touche.
Will you make that
Touche.
now, Spencer?
Touche. Yes. That's superior for the PNM candidate, 1,921. And for the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I take privilege in saying that,
That's right.
9,565.
Gentlemen, I want to ask a brief question first. I know
Yep.
those are not the final figures.
First declared
Those are
seat.
not the final
Those are
figures,
not.
But it's not the final.
achievable.
No, but the question I want to ask, well, is a comment really.
Yes.
Is that PNM candidate going to save her deposit? So we're going
I
to take.
told you earlier
I don't know.
that the Treasury is making some money tonight.
Yeah.
Because quite a few people are going to
Yes.
lose their deposits.
No, but
as
the-
a matter of fact, I can also tell you that a few minutes ago, we were told that there are several patriotic members that have 0 votes.
Yeah, no, we've
Yes,
been
yes.
talking
I
about
think
about-
Ken mentioned that
We've been
before.
talking about that.
He said, yeah, he said that.
We've been talking.
When I ever see those things, I always remember
Because-
my partners in NJAC. I was a little child, I was looking at the TV and I see the numbers come in. And I would turn to my grandmother and say, So the wife then vote for him?
No, but keep on.
Hey,
General,
listen, that created a divorce in the whole family.
no, but there's a significant point arising out of this, gentlemen, which I want to share with our viewers.
Yes.
We don't have in front of us what were the figures in the last election. But if there's a fall off with respect to the PNM votes in these safe seats, one doesn't expect the PNM to win. But if there's a further fall off, let's say the last time that the PNM candidate got 3,000 votes or 3,005 and now has decreased, that is an indication also of the further drift of voters.
I've said to you, Mr. Ali, when there is a sweep, there is a sweep. And everything followed on that. And what is you seen here, Mr. Lewis just said to me, which I took a kind of that our promotions, our is emotional. They are not. A Canadian firm said that it was going to be 22-19. So don't say it's barely emotional. We have the objective evidence. But our hearts is a mystic blowing through the air. No, the whole thing, when there's a sweep, when people decide to turn their backs on you, they're turning their backs on you, and it manifests itself. You made a point which you should have, I thought you should have elaborated upon a little early on. When you talk about that poll, which showed Mr. Rowley being very low, that's why he had to pull out. And they recognized that. He was very unpopular. In point of fact, I'll tell you one thing before you go there. When they call John Jeremy a dog, most of the people get vexed at the camp because you should be doing that. So he was such a low level. We knew that. And people began to drift away.
Yes. Well, as an aside, I don't know if tonight we'll get a chance to talk about the role of legacy and traditional media in this campaign.
Oh, yes.
And the growing irrelevance.
We should talk about it.
I want to come to this, and I wouldn't speak of gentleman's name on the air here, but there is a big-time financier of the PNM who has gotten state contracts, taxpayers' contracts, and he did a survey, commissioned a survey several months ago, which showed the growing unpopularity of Dr. Rowley and these three ministers, and that is why they moved as quickly as they did. They also thought that in calling the election, and I think you touched on it earlier, as quickly as they did, it wasn't a snap election, but calling it as early as they did, would have caught the UNC unprepared, because the UNC by then had not named many candidates. But Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, we were just talking about her, she did a lot of fancy footworks in very quick time and regained the lead. But to come back to this, they were acting on so-called qualified advice based on popular polling. And let's see how the trends go tonight, but that may or may not work for them.
Yes, exactly. Do we have any curious alert
No.
tonight? Yeah, just to remind you, instead of all this talk, and Professor is smiling on this side here, in all of this,
key election.
we have a key election alert. All right, so just to remind you, we are watching the Code Yellow broadcast live from UNC headquarters in Grand Central, Alshogonas, and we're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back with you. Stay tuned. Right, and we're also going to have, just before we come back, we're going to have a short video from the political leader of the United National Congress, Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesa. I refer to her as KPB+. She's going to have a short video just declaring the victory. Go ahead, Kevin.
Mà em mày có hết đâu. Avinash is there.
Where is he?
He's right in front of you.
Yeah. Actually, I've been living on my phone.
Can you give us an update of how the results are looking so far?
Well, first, let me thank Almighty God. We have had a very, very clean campaign, very strong campaign. I feel very confident of a very good result. Let me thank the people of Superior. I'm in Superior tonight. Let's thank Superior. Thank you. And at this time, I can declare Superior safely won. So I declare the first seat in this election, Superior. As the results come in, we'll share with you. But the feedback thus far is very, very good. But I'd like to wait a little longer to get from some of the
All right, we hadn't heard what exactly the next prime ministers had to say, but our feeling here is that we are on the upswing, and a lot of the predictions we had thought about are beginning to show our way.
Professor, it's most appropriate that the first victory we announced tonight is that of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa.
That's as it should probably be.
Indeed. She, of course, was very measured in her response. We didn't hear much of what she said, but that would be her first address to the nation tonight. Clearly, she is going to be here with us later.
And it's appropriate that she be doing it on her own station.
Yes, indeed. And first that she first spoke in her constituency. A constituency that has been loyal to her for many years. She has served the constituency well, and that is aside from being an outstanding prime minister, of course, but she served the constituency very well. It's a rural constituency that has been ignored by the PNM for many years, and I could speak to that because there are issues with respect to water supply and so on.
But what I was saying before, and I think is what you had alluded to, is that in terms of her success, apart from all the things that have been said, is that she has been underestimated by too many people. And I think that, you see, when you underestimate someone and they come out, you begin to understand that in point of fact, they're much more stronger than you think they should be. And I think what has worked for her is that people never took her seriously. Number one, I think the next thing they never took very seriously was the fact of her ability to do the things. So it turns out that underestimation is in fact working for her.
So it's going to be a long evening for her, as for the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. But her home duty has been done, in a manner of speaking, Jerome. She has addressed her team at her headquarters in Superior. Right. We congratulate Mrs. Prasad Bisesa on another resounding victory in Superior. She has been the long-standing member of Parliament, and so she has secured her election there, now to the larger picture.
And of course, I'm sure, and later on tonight, she will be here at the headquarters. I'm sure when we have the final victory to address the nation, most likely as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
Let us tease our viewers a bit to indicate that we expect to be speaking with her sometime in the course of the evening.
Of course we will.
If you're at home, have a hot drink of your favorite beverage, a drink of your hot favorite beverage. I meant tea or coffee,
all right, sorry about
hot chocolate.
Well, don't be too taken away. You want
I meant...
Is that a sign that we should have some stuff on this set?
No, our stuff is this.
I mean, it's just...
No, but a hot drink, I noticed Kevin has not been paying attention to that observation.
It's like you probably thought I was on the set and the people want water.
The people want water. Well, he has changed that.
The people want Kamlan.
The people want Kamlan. Yes.
That would be one of the seminal points in this campaign. When we reflect on it, I am paying high credence to Iowa's involvement and so on.
Right.
Tobago West, we
have a key election alert for Tobago West. Give us that, Ken.
The TPP candidate, 1,050 to to the incumbent 952, which is most significant. I don't have in front of me the size of the electorate, and so we could still indicate that fairly early, but to outmatch the PNM in Tobago West is most significant.
Yeah. Professor, I want to ask you this. During this election campaign, we've seen a lot of these young performers, young black performers who normally in our politics they would be singing on PNM platforms. And you saw in this election, particularly the Trinidad music guys, they came up with all these different songs and cliches and one-liners that really created this massive euphoria on the platforms, particularly at the end of meeting. How do you read that in terms of the cultural sphere and our politics? Go ahead. Do we have a key election alert? Yes, we have a key election alert. Can tell us.
In
Yes.
Tunapuna, a name
Rastafari.
That's your hometown.
Roger
Roger's
Alexander,
hometown. Go ahead.
2234.
Key election alert. Ken Ali, give us that.
2234 for Roger Alexander, Esmond Ford, 1734, THC 8, PF 97, NTA 37. Now the electorate is 27,485. So we are dealing with about just over 4,000 votes so far counted. And just worth a repeat. Roger Alexander 2244, Esmond Ford 1734.
And let me just say, one of those votes can belong to him.
But what is
Show us the red finger.
One of those votes belong to him. One of those votes.
All right, thank you.
And Kevin Gibbs too.
But
One
the
of those
important
votes,
thing
yes.
about Ken, the important thing about that, if
Yes.
you're not finished, is Esmond Ford was the people of Tunapuna who did not want Cleveland, the people of Tunapuna did not want Esmond Ford. They only kept him because Rowley needed to get that vote to select Young. There was another candidate. He was unpopular. And so when they kept him, because they wanted to get the young thing to take to the president and say, hey,
But
we have.
listen.
Well, that's a significant point you're making.
But he doesn't understand that.
No, I want
needs a beverage. He needs-
Ken, just before you go to that, right? I drove
Let
through.
me enjoy that point.
I drove through to Napuna with Professor, and I saw the Alexander's headquarters, right? So he had this massive poster, massive poster on the entire building with his, his signature dark shades and so on, real crime fighter kind of look and so on, right? And just as we crossed the light by the Massey supermarket, there on the left was Ford's headquarters, a rundown old building.
Don't say
Professor
that
Ali?
I used to be in that building, so don't call it rundown.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't rundown when
In
you were
those
there.
days, it was not rundown.
No, but I'm telling you.
You're right.
A rundown building, and I said, hello, this is Ford's headquarters. No life,
No, they didn't want.
no energy,
They didn't.
no politics, and nothing going on. But we have a key election law. Tell us, Ken. Go
Chaguanas
ahead.
West, Mr. Gosign for the UNC, 6,200. 6,200. The PNM's candidate, Mr. Mahabir, 411. So Chaguanas West, again, previously represented by Mr. Rambali. Mr. Gosign, the successor candidate, 6,200 votes over. Mahabir for the PNM, 411. The PF, 203. The PF, 203. The electorate is 28,862.
Yeah,
so Neil Gosign heading to victory in...
Just let me come in first, and then I'll bring.
I was just trying to do a filler.
All right, we do apologize for that short break in transmission, but we back at the UNC headquarters here in Grand Central, Chaguanas, giving you updates and the tally and the high numbers as they come in. Ken, you were telling us about the polling for Chaguanas. Was it Chaguanas you were talking about just before we went to
about
break?
Chaguanas.
Yes.
Just
and you were giving
I
us
want to
that.
simply add one thing.
To what, Chaguanas or to Napuna?
No, sir,
Which one?
don't anticipate me, sir.
Okay, tell us.
You made the question about the whole role of the artist. When we
Yes.
talked about the fact that we had both
The Trinidad artists in particular,
But what
and
I-
they navigating to the UNC platform with
But
a
I
lot
wanna
of creativity.
But I want to say another thing.
Yes.
Because remember, Kenneth said that we saw one of the changes when we had people like OWT coming into the PNM, the transition of these parties now coming urban thing. And we did say the role of the artist. Important is not so much the artist that important. An artist captures the essence of the experience.
Great.
And those artists, through their own creative impulses, captured the mood of the people and then sent it over to us. They were simply vehicles. They were simply echoing what was going down. And they captured it and gave it new force and new life. As you recognize, that whole song, When the UNC Wins,
Yes.
it captured the whole atmosphere. And that's what happens with artists. Not that somebody's telling them, they get a feel on the ground.
Yeah.
They capture the essence, and that is what you had. And
The
that's why there's so much.
the jingle was so sweet. The jingle, the UNC jingle is so sweet, Ken and Professor, that even I heard Fitzgerald Hines on the platform. He say, "Boy, you know that UNC thing real nice," but he said, "I have to admit, it real nice, you know." That was Hines.
So that's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
The artist, and that's what I say about the sweep and the depth with which the UNC has captured the popular imagination during this last election.
Yes.
They've captured the public imagination, and all the artists are doing is really represent essence. So they could go up and change any sound to make anything, and they always talk about it. And so it seems to me what they reflected was the popular imagination.
What I found, Professor, was how they were able to seamlessly insert the political leader, Kamala in the music, UNC, the word vote, and just make up all these rhymes that just blended seamlessly and gave us some of those great hits that we listened to after all these political meetings in the last 6 weeks. You picked that up, Ken,
Yeah, yes,
when you listened to it, the part of culture meshing with our politics.
But I particularly like Professor's point
Yeah.
that the artists represented what was on the ground. So when we heard Iowa come forward, when we heard Swappy, when we heard so many, they were responding to what was happening on the ground.
Popular imagination.
Yeah, yes, there's the popular imagination had gone in favor of the UNC, and they were echoing that. If it was an unpopular cause, you would not have
You
seen
wouldn't have
them
heard
there.
them.
No.
And not
no.
only the ability to, as you said, to transform all those lyrics into Kabla,
Yeah.
into UNC,
Right.
into When Everybody Wins, etc. From the bad boy things, the reggae things, they were doing all that together.
I want to add to that the
Just before
Yeah.
you go to that, I just want to call Kevin Gibbs. Kevin, I know just one of the singers, one of the artists, I think he was just behind Kevin. If you can get him to come on the set so we can talk to him about his music and the campaign. But shortly we're going to have a key election alert. Do we have one? Go ahead, Professor. You
No,
yes.
Ken was saying something.
Yes, Ken.
I was endorsing your point and saying how much I identify with that because I was particularly struck. I'm very entertainment focused, and when I heard all these artists, which represented the diversity of the society, and they came forward and they endorsed and they supported and so on, and it was an indication of what the ground was saying.
But and more importantly, in any revolution, any cultural tradition, the artists come to the
Yes,
front
yes.
because they release new energy.
Yeah.
And that's what a revolutionary moment is.
Indeed.
When you talk about the black
Okay.
All right, we have a key race alert from San Fernando West, one of the marginals.
Indeed,
Go ahead, Keith.
significant numbers here. Dr. Michael Dowlett, 1,102. The incumbent, Faris Al-Rawi, 565. That bears repeat, 1,102 for Dr. Dowlett, fighting his first general election, former principal of Naparima College, highly respected and esteemed, and fighting his third campaign, Faris Al-Rawi, 40 PNM, 565. So a very instructive development there. We don't know what part of the constituency that comes from. So it may be a bit early to draw conclusions, but indeed we would keep monitoring San Fernando West.
Ken, do what I don't, man. That doesn't look very close, right?
Indeed. But
yeah, that's like
San Fernando
double
is
the numbers.
particularly diverse.
Yeah.
I hope that trend continues. Let me say that.
Yeah,
I hope
sometimes if it goes down into Embarcadero and those areas, you could get some static. But as Professor Kojo made the point before, once there's a sweep, the broom goes throughout each
It
constituency.
sweeps very cleanly.
Very cleanly throughout each constituency, I would believe. We have joining us on set Devon Thomas, right? He was one of the artists who performed on each of our meetings throughout the 6 weeks. And Devon, I know you were there like singing, portraying this, when UNC wins, everybody wins. Tell us what kind of inspired you to come up with all these different hook lines and one-liners in the music for this campaign?
Well, I must say, I am not the writer of that song. That song was sent by...
That's
by-
okay, Baron never
Yeah,
write most of his
yeah.
music either. And Sparrow.
That was sent by me,
Yes.
sent to me. And when I heard it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It is very catchy. It is very informational, and it has a energy that brings
Right.
people together and make people feel inclusive.
No, all of what you're saying is nice, you know. But it would sound nice if you give me a little verse and chorus.
Yeah.
When UNC win, 'cause everybody win. When UNC win, Trinbago win. Everybody win. Everybody win. Tell your neighbor, tell a friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, it's time to decide. If you want leaders who can lead, place your eggs by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can build properly, put your eggs by the rising sun. When UNC win, 'cause everybody wins. When UNC win, a Trinbago win.
Right, you see talent, Kojo? You can't do that.
No, I just.
You could write that, but you can't sing
I
it.
told you.
Talent.
I told when
You see
the
talent.
when is the revolutionary movement sentiments emerged. What made you come to the UNC and take up the cause so much as an artist?
Okay, I'm living in a P&M stronghold.
Tell us
Which is where?
In St. Anne's East.
Okay.
Okay.
And
See, a strong man.
yeah. And while living there and realizing that we are being forgotten.
We off? Yeah, Mr. Man, when you take a bandwidth for me, you know, this panel, we go break.
They don't understand this. And the saviors go till 2 and 3 in the morning.
Well, Kevin, what's happening there? What are we hearing there?
Tobago East, 700 auto, 900 for CNN, 1726.
So what we cut off?
No, that off. You want to like?
Okay, just let me, Professor, you may want to hear this in particular.
But let's hear. Oh, sorry, go ahead. You want to give
sorry.
an election?
We'll bring you back
Yeah, you were
right
talking
in.
about St.
No,
Anne's
all right.
East. You're
Okay,
from, right?
so-
Yes.
No, I want to get everybody comes on because we just talk about the power of the music, and
indeed.
so on, and how he became a
Right.
powerful political force. And he's saying why and what inspired him.
Okay, so being there and seeing that we are being neglected and we were taken advantage of, I had an opportunity to either continue down that path or get up and do something about it. And I chose to do something about
Right.
it. So I decided to join the United National Congress, and they give me the opportunity to come and enlighten my community in the best way forward, because I also went up as a candidate on 2 occasions, and I did pretty okay. I did not win, but I gathered a lot of votes. And it was a good opportunity for me to inspire the people in my community to let them know that.
All right, we have a key election alert. Ken, go ahead.
In
tell us
Maya
what's
Road, the
going on.
UNC's Morris, 7,294. The PNM, 2,855. So that is a seat, remember, held previously for 2 terms by Rushton Parry. The UNC's Nicholas Morris, 7,294. PNM, 2,855.
Right, and I think, you know, Ken, when we look at these seats, particularly the Mayaro seat, in which we're seeing a massive lead, like about 4,000 votes, average, about 4,000 votes, right? The Parry didn't do damage. There wasn't any major fallout. in that seat per se. When you look at that,
the
right?
indications
You can
are
conclude,
at this point, yes.
Right, but continue, Devon. You were
so
telling us.
I got the opportunity to, enlighten myself, number one, and my community, and try to educate them in a way, stating that we don't have to continue going down this path. There's option, and it's up to us to make this option, or we would continue to be deteriorated.
How did you feel when the statement was made that blacks were coming to the UNC because they were being paid? What went through your mind at the time?
I laughed when I heard that, because I know that is far away from the truth. The reason why we are gravitating to the UNC is because of policy. The UNC have policy that benefits us in the best way forward. And we realize that at the end of the day, that is what we need. We need to go for good policies because we need development.
Yeah, was there, like, in your own way, any backlash from like family members, relatives? Because Kojo get relics,
I get
right now. If I leave Kojo here, he might disappear.
You can't go back to Tacarigua.
You can't go back. Kojo can't go back to Tacarigua. But was there like backlash from friends? I mean, massive fallout from close ones and so on?
Of course, I deal with that on a daily basis. More at election time. I am told that I'm a sellout. I am a lick. You know what?
Yeah.
You name it, I've been called it. But I don't let that faze me, because on the road to righteousness, and the road, it is a rugged road. It's not a smooth road. And if that is what I had to go through to bring some sort of light into the darkness in my community, then so be it.
Right. And you making your contributions as you go on. We got a key election alert, Ken. Tell us what's
One
going
that
on.
Professor will be particularly interested in.
I'm sure, yes.
Tunapuna Roger Alexander of the UNC 3180, that is 3,180, to Esmond Ford of the PNM 2,610. So the electorate 27,485. And that result, that update as of 2 minutes ago, 3180 to 2610.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Professor, you know the candidate, well, the PNM candidate for Tunapuna. And he really no star, right? I mean,
You
that
see,
man
I think
dead.
No, I think we see. I talk about the intellectualizing and the figures, how people feel. This gentleman just said to you, on the road to righteousness, there are many obstacles, and one has to have the testicular fortitude to say, hey, I stand for something. And when that grabs a people and you're filled with emotion, you can't stop that.
Yes.
All this other, what I'm saying to him, as an artist, he felt it. And more importantly, he was impelled to release it, because you got dead. You got choke.
I want to ask Devon a question. How early did you spot that and you felt that movement? When did you get involved in the music and joining the UNC and the campaign and so on?
Okay, well, me being in a community like St. Anne's and would have had brief encounter with the PNM, and when I realized the PNM come in our community, the mama guys with all sort of speed talk, and after that they leave us to hang out to dry. And me getting into music with the UNC, I went to an interview in front of the leader, and she said to me, DT, what do you do? I said, Boss City, I just write and sing, you know. And she wrote her email address on a pad, and she said, write me a song. And I went home, we have a little backyard studio, nothing too fancy. And I told the producer, I tell Miss Kamala Pasabi says I could sing, and he's like, what we gonna do? And I was like, okay, let me write a song. And I wrote the song and I sent it in for her. And you know, because that's the way as a man, if you say you do something, you do it. And it turned out to be very, very a big song.
Right, we have a key election alert. Ken,
Sure,
tell us what's
Gowanus
going
East,
on.
Vandana Mohit, 3,145, Rishi Sukai of the PNM, 1,086. And to repeat again that the PNM had high hopes in that seat. Mr. Young had anticipated, had hoped to turn around that seat, but you have Vandana Mohit, a sizable lead in what has been her stronghold. She has represented that constituency very effectively, and tonight she seems to be romping home again.
Yeah, because Sukai was someone who was kind of brought in as this business guy. He was in the Senate, and he was being kind of tutored for
Promoted to.
this moment, right? Molded for this
Indeed.
moment, right?
Now, I
But it
wrote
didn't seem to
during
that
the-
has worked out.
During the campaign, I wrote that he had a huge struggle with the English language.
Really?
He had and at some point they appeared to be scripting him because he didn't seem to have a command of the language and so on. And most regrettable because he had served as a junior minister of works and transport and so on. And you're right, they were grooming him, and I think they probably anticipated that he would have been among the new generation of PNM second string leaders. Well, tonight he is not faring particularly well. That is a diverse constituency. That constituency includes
is.
Longdonville and Enterprise.
It is.
Jack,
One of
what's
the
it
things
called?
that
That was Jack.
No, he was
West.
Chaguanas West.
West.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. go ahead.
And that is true, right? And Vandana is a hard worker. She has a lot of connections with all these small groups within the Chaguanas East constituency, and that has been going on for quite a number of years during her term there. So she's very well connected throughout that constituency. So it's kind of I'm not saying difficult to beat her, but if you have to come at her, you have to really know what you're doing. We have a key race alert. Key election alert. Let's go. What is it? Go ahead.
Tunapuna, we gave those figures a while ago, but bears repeating, if only to bring a smile to Professor's face.
Yes, he can go home tonight.
He could go home.
He can go home tonight.
He going back
He can
home to
sleep,
Carigua.
and he can sleep well tonight.
If
And
the
this is one vote counted.
Rasta man, I don't like that. People.
This is one vote counted. Yeah.
All right, let's repeat it. Tunapuna 3180 for Roger Alexander, 2610 Esmond Ford, the two-term member of parliament, the incumbent for Tunapuna, the marginal constituency. So there is a lead there for Roger Alexander. We still have a lot of votes to count. This is what, just under
4,000.
Yeah, just under
6,000.
6,000.
Yeah.
We don't know what the minor parties are doing.
Oh, please, sir.
But you know,
a good lead.
as we on to Tunapuna, Roger Alexander, crime fighter, and we've had in the last 10 years 5,000 people just murdered from one way or the other. You think that crime it was really one of the big selling points for voters? You're locked up in your house, home invasion, you can't go anywhere, lockdown time, the police unable to have, to detect a lot of this stuff. Very, very low detection rates. And on top of that, Ken and Professor, the tardiness of our courts to prosecute any matter under 10 years.
Yes. Well,
how all that plays
while
in this
Professor
election.
lives there, just let me get a short, brief, early response, and then
Yes.
Professor could respond at length. Tunapuna, there's a high crime rate there. It is reported that there are certain gangs that operate in that area. So, and a lot of people have felt terrorized over a period of time. I think that Roger Alexander has been an inspired candidate because he comes from law enforcement and he has the imagery. The imagery is very important
Yeah,
in
he
all
has
of this.
the dash, the flash, he has the presence for that. When
He has
he
the
speaks,
presence,
you could
yeah.
say, yes, man, this fella could bring down crime.
Indeed. Very interesting. Well, just to repeat that point, but very, very interesting. We'd also monitor what's happening in St. Joseph because there's where Gary Griffith, who comes from a law enforcement past and was seeking to get his party.
But let me just stop you.
Yeah.
That a lot of people say he's not from law enforcement, he's from the army. And that the edge Alexander has over
yes,
him is
yeah.
that Alexander is a crime fighter. Somebody who's been in the police service who knows the nuts and bolts of crime fighting. Not Griffith, who came from the army. We have another key election alert.
For the first
Tell us
time
what's
this
going on.
evening, we're hearing about Princestown, that Dr. Aina Ali, the first-time candidate, UNC 6,230.
Yes.
The PF candidate, 281. And the PNM's candidate, Ruklin Mohammed, 1775. 6,230 to 1775. Princestown has been a bedrock of the UNC for a long time. And it seems as though, well, clearly the UNC is going to be home and dry there.
Yeah, I just want to go to Professor Kojo. Tunapuna, I want to just head back to that and the whole, matter concerning crime. What was, what have you been hearing like on the ground with people there?
Oh God, brother, don't make it so scientific.
Well, I mean,
The first and primary responsibility of any government is the safety of its people. The capacity and ability to walk in your street like the road made to walk on Carnival Day. If you cannot do that, you have failed. You don't need a big explanation for that. One, that fellow called Randall Burrows, you remember him? Again, from where? He didn't go to no big set of school, you know. Randall Burrows will hold you and say, hey, if you're
Yep.
all right, people want people to respond. Now, your commissioner of police is a lovely lady, I suspect. But she went through she come through exam. People want people who could fight a crime. So when someone comes with that imagery, as you said, but who actually represents and says to you and give appearances sometimes is reality. So therefore said Ford, what was Ford? A nice deputy speaker and did nothing else? So in terms of the imagery, it seems to me he just represented something that's much more dynamic and speaks to our interest.
do we have a key election alert?
Yes, indeed. Tobago East,
Tell us.
the TPP candidate, David Thomas, 2,445. That is as of 6 minutes ago, 2,445 against Ayanna Webster Roy of the PNM, the incumbent, 1,216. 2,445 against 1,216 of note Watson Duke, 220, and then there's a PF candidate, 14, and the IDA candidate, Abel, for 17 votes.
Watson Roop is a spent force. You don't understand.
Well, I think after
He's a spent force.
after that kind of
When Karen
Young
jumped
and
over the
Restless-
bridge, when Karen jumped over the rails
Yes.
to go to Pandy funeral, she was dead. That's how Trinia's work.
I want to go
What
to
I catch you once.
I want to go to Devon a little bit because you're from St. Anne's East, right?
Yes, I am.
And I just want to talk about the environment. Crime around that area. How has it been?
Very, 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 very bad.
Excuse me. That's it.
Multiple murders.
That's it.
Imagine you're sleeping in your house 2 o'clock in the morning and being awake by rapid gunfire. And you stand and you watch your phone and you get a message from a group and you just see somebody lying on the ground and it'll be like, it has become so normal that when you hear gunshots, you wait for the results of who dead and everybody goes back to business.
And that is what, let me add, don't cut me off.
I'm not
But Mr.
cutting
Stuart
you.
Young was once the Minister of National Security,
Yes.
and he failed miserably. He was supposed to lock up people. He failed miserably. And you're saying now to me, people are not stupid.
But and I just want to add to that. When the political leader KPB said, "Look, one of the key plans," she spoke specifically about a Ministry of Justice. But then she also says every law-abiding citizen can own a gun, all right, and have these stand-your-ground laws so that you could protect yourself. A lot of people, she got a lot of flack for it from, some members of the public try to turn it into, well, she's going to give everybody a gun. That was not the idea. It's everybody who can qualify to get a gun, not just everybody per se. But look at what has happened in the PNM, right? Heinz said, well, the crime is not my problem, it's the police. And then they turned that, well, it's not the police. Police say, well, it's parents. And then it turned now to the voter to protect themselves. So, Professor, that has been a kind of abandonment of government's ownership of security of the nation, which is in our constitution, to protect citizens. And they abandoned that, right?
I am simply saying to you, the most fundamental principle of any democracy, we elect a government to keep us safe. And if you have not done that, you have failed. Now, what has happened, and I think Brother Thomas is alluding to that, when you get up and look on your phone and you say, no, let me see who did, you've created a different kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Even that's a kind of savagery. So we no longer people and human. We have some kind of, you turn us into a kind of beast.
We are.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. They never understood that. Rowley spent some commission about 2 years ago, bring all candidates from all over the place and say we are violent society. But you listen to Rowley's language, it is violent. Violence even in his language. So in fact, not so much they said change it from one to, they never understood what violence meant to the mind and the people. Sorry.
All right, we have a key election. Ken,
We
tell
keeping
us what's
close
going
tabs
Yes.
on Tunapuna. As of 4 minutes ago, Roger Alexander 3,338, Esmond Ford 2,786, 3338-2786, the electorate 27,485. Doesn't mean
About
one of
7,000.
27,485.
No,
Yeah.
7,000 votes. Have been
Yes,
cast it? Cast,
indeed.
yes, 725. and
se-
or
seven-
6,000.
700, yes, yes,
about
indeed.
that.
I just want on another note, just to indicate that we have more than 7,000 viewers. We thank you for being with us, many of them abroad, and we ask you to spread the broadcast to as many people as possible because the discussion here, Jerome and Professor, is very vigorous, much more vigorous than anywhere else, and so this is the place to be on election
Well, I
night.
think, UNC, whenever we have a live stream broadcast, and tonight, the stream is going down because we need some massive bandwidth for
And I
this senator.
suspect it will increase with our guest who was just
with
joined.
our major guest who is here with us tonight. And we have joining us one of the key players. He's
General
in the
Secretary.
background, but one of the most powerful men. He could come
Indeed.
and take any one of us off the set right now.
Right now. All of
And
us.
say,
I
go
doubt
from
that.
here.
I doubt
Mr.
that. Good
Peter
evening,
Kanai,
gentlemen.
General
Good
Secretary of the United
Aye.
National Congress. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. What do you make of the numbers coming in, Mr. Jensek? Now, so far, you've been in this business for a long time. You know defeat, and now tonight it looks like victory. Tell us.
Well, I am happy with the numbers that I have seen so far, albeit that we have not really seen numbers from the battleground marginal seats as yet. But the information that I have is that we're doing well. Of course, we have to wait on those numbers to come in, but we're doing well. Well, of course, you all would have broadcast the political leaders' declaration of Superior, the
First
first
seat, yep.
seat, and then we have numbers from some other seats that are close to being declared. Shogunas West, Vandana Mohit doing very well in Shogunas East, Nicholas Morris doing well in Miaro, and others. So it's trending nicely for us. At the end of a campaign where we ran a very clean, strategic, policy-filled
Oriented.
campaign, but at the same time, parallel to that, we ran a battle with the Elections and Boundaries Commission,
Yes.
including today.
Tell us about that, because I know that you have been to several meetings with the EBC.
Over the
What
years,
was some of the really main concerns you had with the EBC and this election?
Well, some of the concerns we would have had and would have expressed to the EBC, not just during this campaign, but in the past, was the issue of the people that they use as returning officers, as presiding officers.
Yes.
And you all know that in this election, we were able to provide the EBC with the necessary video information that would have caused them
Right.
to take out at least one presiding officer in the marginal seat of La Joqueta Talparo. You would recall the Lengua Indian Walk issue,
Yes.
where a presiding officer did not initial a ballot that ended up in a court case.
And just before you continue, I want to ask you about that, because today I got a text from someone who voted, and the person realized that the presiding officer didn't sign the ballot paper. Now, does that disqualify the ballot once it goes into the box?
It should not, and we have told our persons that are in the polling stations to do the counting, but if those things occur, they can request that the presiding officer initial the ballot. Right? But we did, in fact, today have a lot of that.
See.
I had to pen a letter to the EBC because we were getting complaints that in many areas, ballots were not being initial.
But I want to just go back, Mr. Jensek, to I think it was the Moruga case where we had 3 votes, and it was
Lengua Indian Walk, and it was one ballot.
It was one ballot.
Yes.
Was that the case that went to court? What
Yes, that
what was the
case.
outcome in that
Yes.
case?
Well, the outcome of that case was that they ruled that there be a by-election, and there was a by-election which the PNM eventually won.
Right.
Right? But as I said today, we were getting complaints of that kind of thing happening a lot. A lot of people were reporting that they did not believe that a number of the officials in the polling stations were properly trained.
Jensek, just let me interrupt
Oh,
briefly.
we have a key election
No,
alert, do we?
actually, this is
Tell
very
us.
significant.
All right, go ahead.
Colleagues, a reputable source on social media is reporting, and I'll read this statement, one statement. The PNM has rolled up its red carpet and pushed it to the side of the stage. This is at Balize House. Now, we'll seek to confirm that. It's still fairly early, but that, of course, would give us an indication of what's the mood in that camp at Balize House on Tranquility Street in Port of Spain.
Yeah, so Mr. Jensek, just to continue on these unmarked or initial ballot papers, where can you just tell us the areas you had these complaints coming? Was it marginals?
Those complaints were prevalent today. That is why we eventually, earlier on today, had to pen a letter to the EBC about it and documented it. And I should let you know that every letter that was penned to the EBC today was CC'd to the observers, the CARICOM observers and the Commonwealth observers today. And of course, placed in the public domain as well, because this was poll day. Right? And we had to make people aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
But what happens, in the final result? The election's over, all the votes are counted, even if we win the seat. Do we challenge that? What happens?
Well, I think what we will more than likely want to do is to take these matters forward, even if not in the courts, at least with the Elections and Boundaries Commission, and make sure that we find a way to resolve these issues that occur all the time. Elections are sacred things to your democracy.
Right.
And it ought to be that all stakeholders must have faith and confidence in the process and in the people that are in charge of the process.
Right. We have a key election alert. Ken,
Yes,
tell us
at
what's going on.
Tunapuna, we're keeping our eyes firmly peeled on Tunapuna 3880 for Roger Alexander, the incumbent Esmond Ford 3429. A lead. It may have tightened a bit. Again, it depends on where the boxes are coming from. But he is holding the lead, Professor, and he started the count with a lead and is healthy lead.
What were the votes last year? How many votes were cast in Tunapuna last year?
Well, I don't have those figures, but we can get that for you.
Yeah, because I think that gives us a good sense. We got about probably 3 and 3 is 6, about 7,005. And of course, depends on how many more votes we have as a guideline in terms of what's happening.
And perhaps you also need to look at other candidates that would have been in the seat.
Yeah,
Right, so you're saying, are you concluding that this is one of the best efforts so far for the UNC in this seat? Because I know you've been
No,
it's Tunapuna has always been a marginal.
Yes, you had Eddie, you had Assam, you have always had that change.
It's swing,
It's a swing. So what you want to be sure now is in terms of how many voted, say, probably 12,000 or 13,000
Indeed.
in Hardway, we're probably halfway through how we're trending. And of course, when I worked in Tunapuna, what areas came out and what voting areas were coming out and where we are. So I think we got a... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say in 2010, Winston Dukaran won a hard fought.
It's in Gaston.
No, in Tunapuna.
Tunapuna?
Yeah,
Tunapuna.
he won in Tunapuna. Yes. So we don't know the equations yet.
Yes.
But
So
the fact that Roger Alexander has held the lead, like Usain Bolt from the start, He's
Yes.
at this stage, this is probably out midway.
And since they
is
didn't
significant.
want Esmond Ford.
Yes, yeah. Just let me also add that all the UNC seats that are held currently, except we don't have word on Moruga Tableland yet, the
can hold
UNC
them.
is comfortably in the
It's
lead.
holding them, yeah.
Princestown, the Shaguana seats, the Caroni seats, Naparima, and so on. The UNC is comfortably in the lead in those seats.
Right. Mr. Jensek, I just want to ask you, was there anything in particular, like in this, I know you very much involved in a lot of the machinery in the background, getting things done and so on. Anything in particular with this election that you were concerned about, that you wanted to have secured as we go
happened,
along, or to make it happen for us to reach this point? Because I know you've been there.
Well, we would have focused a lot on the training of our personnel that are in the various constituencies
Bring down
and
votes.
so on, largely because of the issues we were having with the Elections and Boundaries Commission, not just in this campaign, but previously. And we wanted to be sure that our people were well trained, understood their rights, understood the law, and so on. So we focused a lot on training for our people.
Let me ask you a direct question. I know that you all have had a lot of meetings with
The
this
questions weren't so direct?
ABC. They were not so direct.
This is a
but
direct
but
one.
do you sense, a lot of times, whenever you criticize an institution in this country, people would say, well, you're attacking the institution, but sometimes you may have a legitimate concern based on some of the things that you're seeing emanating from these institutions. Do you feel in any way, based on going back and forth with the EBC, there might be some kind of bias or something going on that you feel interrupted, all this thing with ballots not being signed, and you're just going back and they're telling you, well, they're going to work on it, and then you're having more meetings and so on. Is that something that you feel, a gut feeling?
It is something that we have had a lot of concern with in this campaign. In fact, today alone, as I told you, I would have written about 8 or 9 letters. I would pen with our legal team, we pen to the EBC. But between the 3rd of April and Friday, we would have written about 35 letters.
Could I
to
ask
the
you,
EBC.
Jensek, have you gotten responses to any
We've
of the
gotten
letters?
responses to some of them. I can't say that we were. In fact, some of the responses that they sent, we had to pen a second letter.
Okay.
Right? And by the way, when we met with the observer teams, we were able to give to them a dossier of all those correspondence, both what went from us to the EBC and what came from the EBC to us.
Jensek, do you think the EBC is fundamentally flawed? Do you think the EBC is fundamentally flawed?
Yes. I think that probably there should be a commission of inquiry into the functioning of the EBC. And as I said earlier on, we need to get all stakeholders involved and fix the issues and the challenges.
Is
with the
there an
EBC.
inherent bias?
Well, I don't want at this point in time to say that.
All right.
Right?
Yeah,
But
Mr. Kana is very diplomatic,
No, and he's correct.
Yeah. You had a question, Professor. I just want to ask him something on the observers and the role of the observers when we call in observers. I mean, a lot of people, citizens, hear that, look, parties call for observers to come in. But give us just briefly, what they would be doing, like by the hour, by the second, during a day like today.
Well, generally, the observers and the observer teams would be roving into the various constituencies. They would have gotten information from all stakeholders, including ourselves, as to where we think the issues are likely to happen and where they should focus their attention. But you have to keep in mind that although the United National Congress, through our political leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, had called for observers. In fact, she called for observers in the 2020 general elections, right? And it was really through her efforts that I think the PNM in government was forced on this occasion to bring in observers, albeit that those observers came in just a few days ago, when usually observers would be on the ground weeks before.
Right.
These observers would have come into Trinidad and well, Tobago as well. But they came in here after nomination day. They came in here days after special voting had commenced.
No,
Go ahead, Professor. I know you wanted to go. Yeah.
Let me ask this briefly.
Just a,
Okay, we have breaking news.
We have an alert.
Kivan Gibbs.
We have an alert.
a curious alert. What we have?
Lahokita Talparo.
Yes, we need to give you the mic so he can. get it.
Lahokita Talparo. It seems that Mr. Cummings has 4,753 votes. And the current seems to be burning very brightly.
Look on the screen, Professor.
With Watts at 6,796 votes.
When there is a sweep, all the brooms are cleaned up.
So that's over 2,000 votes more
The 6
than
and
the
4, that's
incumbent
10,000.
Cummings, the General Secretary of the PNM.
But forget General Secretary. That's
The candidate.
That's 4 and 6 at 10, 11,000 votes.
Indeed.
I'm saying what the trend is. But my point, what I was trying to, in all the discussion, is that ultimately, whatever complaints you make to a observer committee, the only things to see what the irregularities are. I think the important thing is to, because if you've lost and you bring up complaints, that means that you already lost. What's important is that what you're doing while the day is going on, so the observers and the people get alerted, and the people inside the polling booths know you're listening to what's happening. And that is the virtue of it, not to stay on the right reports, because when you lose, you lose.
Yeah. There's no second place.
There's no second place. So the thing about those, which I think is so very important, what you're doing, is that you're alerting the public, you're alerting the people inside there, be looking at all you.
Yes.
In point of fact, I heard today, I can't call name, a very high official opinion was going around and giving a lot of money, and about 1 point something million to give out. But the people began to follow him. So he couldn't, how come?
They just had to pack up and go.
And go.
And we ended up winning the Sandy Grande Regional Corporation
That is the point.
by all except one seat.
That is the point.
Okay.
Very proactive. We have a key election alert. Can tell us what's going on there?
As of just a very few minutes ago, Tunapuna, Roger Alexander of the UNC, 5,081. Esmond Ford of the PNM, 4,399. And the electorate, as we know, 27,485. The minor players, 22,243 and 94. So 5,081, 4,399.
Well, one of the things we may want to know too at this point, if you get it, what percentage of the people eligible to vote are voting? We know in last year, it was about, last election was about 59%. Prior to was 67%. We just to know in terms of the go along, in terms of what percentage of the electorate.
Prof, high voter turnout, as we all know, favors the UNC.
That's exactly my point.
And it seems from the anecdotal evidence, the General Secretary is much more better placed to tell us than we are. It seems, Gen Sec, that there was a high voter turnout.
Well, it would seem that the UNC support came out in this election.
High voter turnout, as we all
Right,
know.
so if there is an increase in the turnout, it would appear that it was the UNC's support that came out, right? Because as you all would admit, the UNC's campaign was a very energizing campaign, culminating in that rally at the West Savannah.
Yes.
Came out in this election.
The basic UNC constituents must come out. The difference would be those who are going to make the difference in those like Tunapuna and so on. And that's what we got to keep our eyes on. Sorry.
The UNC's
Yes, we have a key election alert, Ken.
Caroni is central. Let me give the PNM's vote first. 966, the PF 322, the UNC's Dr. David Lee, 6,184.
But that's bad licks.
That's bad licks.
Yeah, if you call it like that.
To use local vernacular, it's bad licks
So,
in Caroni Central.
Gen Sec, you think
Caroni is central.
probably
Let me
have
give
all
the PNM's
these
vote
corners,
first. 966,
covered
the
for
PF
this election
322,
based on
the
past
UNC's
experiences
Dr.
with
David Lee,
EBC ballot papers not being
6,184.
signed and people
paying out money and so on. You think the
They use
vigilance,
local,
it was a high intensity in this election.
We were very clear that we needed to let the EBC know that we had our eyes on them, and we also made it well known to the population what the issues we were experiencing and we were monitoring. We made it very public. In fact, every letter we wrote today was sent out to the media.
Right.
The EBC know that
Do we have a
had
key
our
race
eyes
alert, Kevin?
on them?
Right?
And
We call, yep.
Yeah, we give those figures, but it
Well-known
bears.
Just to repeat,
Yes,
Ken?
5,081. 5,081 for Roger Alexander contesting his very first general election, and 4,399 for Esmond Ford of the PNM contesting his third. He won twice. He's the incumbent in Tunapuna, and he presented himself as if he was unassailable in that seat. And at this point, UNC's Roger Alexander is several hundred votes ahead.
It's not quite as unassailable as he might have thought.
Indeed.
But I just want to ask you, gentlemen, you know, usually people would say, well, if you win Tunapuna, you get La Hoqueta, or you win Tunapuna and you win St. Joseph, or you win San Fernando West, you could carry the entire election. Based on what you're seeing, Mr. Jensek, you getting a sense that things might be kind of leaning that way?
Well, we came into this election with 19 seats. Right? At this point in time, we feel comfortable that those 19 seats are going to be retained. Right? And to get to the magic figure of 21 seats, you need two. Right? St. Joseph, Tunapuna, La Hoqueta, San Fernando West.
You get what to? You just have to get two more.
You just have to get two more. Right? And from what I heard you all reporting a short while ago, it means it looks like the PNM might be down two in Tobago.
Right, because I was just about to ask you that, right? Based on the numbers
on the
that we had for
results so
Tobago, it doesn't look good for them in East and West in Tobago so far, right? So that makes a huge difference.
Of course, I've been in this thing so long that I have learned to wait until the fat lady sings.
Are you surprised, Mr. Jensek, about these third forces really relaying 0 votes, 7, 82? I mean, real jokey thing. To put it in local parlance. Are you surprised?
I give the population kudos for recognizing that this is a serious matter, the future of the country, and for recognizing that there are really just two parties in this race that can take the mantle of the government of this country and take us forward. And but the results so far, it seems the thing there is only one.
And Jensek, we could conclude at this point, in terms of the small parties, we could conclude at this point that they were unable to split the votes.
Well, it would look that way, but as I caution you, never forget that in Tunapuna, some years ago, 200 votes thereabouts made the difference.
Right. Good observation. And Jensek, we could conclude at this
So,
point.
any new key alerts, key election alerts?
No, but the
that we have
trends are
coming in?
continuing. Just to indicate, as we said before, we are not given a lot of figures for Oropush West and East and so on, but the UNC is comfortably in the lead on and Caroni and so on. There are no surprises there, so we have to tell you that.
Right, just to remind you, for the thousands watching us online, this is the Code Yellow podcast, and we started like around 7:30 or 7:30 we started this evening, and we're going all the way through the night till the final vote is counted. On the set, Professor Selvin Kojo, journalist Ken Ali, and the General Secretary of the United National Congress, Mr. Peter Kanai, who is one of the key men in this entire campaign. When you're looking at all these large screens for all these meetings, the sound system, just the infrastructure to put that up, this is the man who has been there ensuring that every meeting, every campaign meeting had the finest and the highest quality ever in the past 6 weeks. And if we move out of the 6 weeks, for the last 8 years for Monday Night Forums, he as well has been responsible for all that infrastructure. We do have a key race alert. Ken, give us that.
Coming up now, and it is UNC wins Sawa Barataria. UNC wins Sawa Barataria.
For Saddam Hussein.
7,122 for Saddam Hussein. The incumbent, 3,389 for Dr. Yunus Ibrahim.
But he must say what party he's from.
Well, I did say oh no.
That's it,
As Professor would have said earlier on, once you have the lift, it will lift all votes.
Rising
Sawa
Tide.
Barataria as a marginal seat would be the furthest west marginal seat. So if you take from that and you go east along the corridor.
Because electoral constituencies are not like a pizza slice you pull out one. People interact, their families or relatives, and so on, their friends and so on. So when you see that kind of lift, it clearly spreads to some extent in the neighboring constituencies.
You see, the General Secretary has said before,
Because electoral constituencies are not like a pizza slice you pull out one. People interact, their families or relatives,
people
and so on, their friends and so on.
fundamentally are
So when you see that
The
kind
body
of
just talked about
lift,
St.
it
Anne's.
clearly spreads
People
to
have
some
got
extent
tired
in the neighboring
of that,
constituencies.
and they decided to move in a particular way. Nothing you could do could stop that. And you'll see it in terms of the results.
No, it appears, Professor, we don't have those figures with us now, but we'll get them shortly, that the PNM has fared worse this time in Sawa Barataria than it did 5 years ago.
And as
5
they
years
will-
ago,
and
its
as-
candidate was the
and as
broadcaster.
they will
Remember?
Well, is that the final count?
We'll find that out, but the disparity seems to be wider than it was. The gentleman who later became a broadcaster on television was the candidate for the PNM in 2020. And for what we're seeing here, and these, as the Gen Sec reminds us, may not be the final figures, but the width, the gap seems to be quite wide.
You have to keep in mind, Foster Cummins told us that they just send out
the disparity seems to be
the
wider
opposition
than it
votes
was.
first.
The gentleman who later became a
Right? Remember
broadcaster
that.
on television
But I want gentlemen to say that we must recognize and compliment our political leader, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, for the way she has led the party, not just since 2010, but particularly in the last couple of years and through this campaign. We are where we are because of our political leader and the way she has led us in this campaign.
And I want to endorse that statement because I keep telling Professor Kojo, and I think he probably may have mentioned that in one of his articles, that I think a lot of people underestimated the political leader, Mr. Kanai, because she's kept this party together despite all kinds of stuff going on. The internal elections, you've had all this kind of, mudslinging here and there, and she's been able to keep it together. And as I told the audience before, she has created this ballistic counterforce that we have now that's creating this result that we're seeing here. And credit has to be given to her for that, right? We do have a key election alert, Ken?
Yes, as of just a 4 minutes ago, that seat we're keeping our eyes peeled on, Tunapuna. Roger Alexander keeping the lead, 6,105. Desmond Ford, 5,189. I repeat that, 6,105,5189. The electorate, 27,485. The minor seats, the minor candidates, 24, 285 and 104. So it is a significant lead now, Jensek, in Tunapuna. 6,105 to 5,189. I repeat that, 6,105, 5,189. The electorate,
And that's, you see, that's important because that's going to
the
keep
minor seats,
like that.
the minor
If you
candidates,
keep that
24,
1,000,
285 and 104.
500,
So
I
it
think
is a
that will be the
significant,
big
that is over 11,000 voters, and if you anticipate us,
And it's not going to be a great sweep, but that's what happened. That seat, it goes back
back and forth.
In between Sanwa, Barataria, and Tanapuna would be St. Joseph. Right. I don't know if we've gotten any.
We had some earlier numbers for St. Joseph, but can you think you could pull that up?
I
for
will
us?
look.
Just
Yes.
check, because
Indeed.
I know we had St. Joseph.
But you
and,
know, I just want to
some
add
matches.
one thing to the mix here. How does it feel to be a candidate that you didn't get a single vote? And that is happening in
Who's that?
several seats. Look at Barataria Sawa, the NTA, the PF, and APP candidate, whoever that is, 000. And that is coming up in several constituencies. And we are getting another alert.
Right, we have a key election alert. Ken, tell us what's going on.
Caroni Central 6184 for Dr. David Lee. The yellow is the code of the UNC. 966 for the PNM's candidate. 6185, that's the Heartland constituency. And that puts the UNC as 3 declared seats, or close to declared. Absolutely, the numbers indicate a comfortable lead for the candidate there. So Dr. David Lee would return to the parliament, not Point-a-Pierre at this time, but Caroni Central with a tremendous victory.
Congratulations to Dr. David Lee.
Right, so the trend seems to be heading in the right direction, right? So
I think it's going to
based
right.
on
I think it's going. And one of the things which I suspect, while we're not getting the figures so very quickly,
So Dr.
it
David Lee will
demonstrates
return
that
to the
people are
parliament,
counting
not
the votes,
Point-a-Pierre
and
at
that
this
is
time, but
probably
Caroni Central.
Particularly in the
with a
margin.
tremendous
and particularly in the margins. So it's trending correctly, and if certainly our assumptions are correct, is that it seems that this time around there's going to be a result which will make your general secretary and his party leader very, very happy people.
Not to mention Professor Kudjo, I know
Oh
this.
God, boy! I want them people to lose so bad.
I know that Professor Kojo would have spent some time in the Aruka Lopino seat.
Yes, I did.
And I know that up to about 5 o'clock this evening, that was a very close seat.
oh yes, we haven't had any numbers
had
coming
any.
in
I
from
don't think we've had any numbers coming in.
Lupino, right? That's,
At about 5 it
I
was
want them people to
close.
lose so
It
bad.
was a close race. But Dr. Natalie Chaitan
Chaitan Maharaj,
Yes, we haven't heard a number there.
Incidentally, she gave a fantastic speech
Right,
on
last
that
week
last,
on the platform, yeah.
on
Yes.
that platform in our
Last
Five
week.
Rivers.
Yes.
I was very impressed the way in which she personalized it and then went on to say what she expects to do. I thought it was a classic speech.
It was very nice.
As I also thought the Prime Minister to be speech at Aranguez was fundamentally, advanced. When I said that she's going to be, when I talked about her being the sort of mother of the nation, I was thinking in terms of Eric Williams, and people lift themselves up to occasions. And that speech I thought was so well crafted, even allowing for flaws and making them strengths. Okay, you say I'm weak, but I do, etc., etc. I thought that I was one of the best speeches I've ever heard.
Well, it was a testimonial, and only she could have said that.
Yes.
What she said, nobody else could have said that. And usually, when you give these testimonies, people see the genuineness in it, because there's a lot of sympathy. Because people are saying, well, here it is. You're really saying, well, I'm not perfect. I'm not the idealist kind of person, but then I have some love. I care for you and I can help you. And that, to me, made a huge difference in her speech compared to what occurred at the other side on the same day.
And anybody who knows Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa will know that that is not political rhetoric. That is,
of course,
a fact. That is just who she is.
But you see, it was really I always say a counterfactual. But people are pressing and speaking of our weaknesses in terms of physical, whatever. You said, listen, what makes a man or a person, not his physical inabilities or whatever, but in terms of one's intellectual and moral. So when they say that this Mr. Young is an international this and angel the other, and who speaks in the same way as his leader of grief, you recognize, I think the counterpointing of that was done at the correct moment.
I just want to say one thing on what you're saying here, because I have heard Dr. Rowley, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Young, I've seen some columnists in the newspaper speak of what they considered to be certain physical matters with respect to Mrs. Sadbi Sessa, which she has disproved in a tough, vigorous campaign. But more than that, assuming it to be true, the United States had a president who was in a wheelchair.
Yes.
There's currently a governor in the United States.
Texas.
Yes.
The Texas governor, he runs the entire Texas.
But you know the media never
border.
took
He runs the border. He has the most secure border in the United States, and he's in a wheelchair. Right?
But the media never upbraided. We may not have time this evening to talk about the media, but they never upbraided those politicians and others who spoke that way. In fact, they did not comment on. I don't think they did when Dr. Rowley described John Jeremy as a dog. We have Kivan Gibbs is telling us
key
now.
election alert.
Claxton Bay, a significant victory there for Mr. Narayan Singh. 9,209 first time candidate, and keeping that seat. No, that seat was formerly Pointe-a-Pierre, represented by Dr. David Lee, and I know the PNM had ambitions for that seat, and I'll tell you another why. 4,602 for the PNM's candidate, 9,209 and 4,602. Now, the PNM was hoping that it would have made a dent in that seat with the announcement of the privatization of Petrotrin, and because you know all those fence line communities from Hoover to Princestown have been adversely affected badly. So they were trying to rush this Oando privatization to make this announcement and to hope. I know they had put a deep focus on Claxton Bay because that community has been badly affected by the shutdown of Petrotrin in November 2018. It has made no dent, 4,602 to 9,209. Mr. Narayan Singh, we commend him. He is going to be the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago.
Let's just put it this way. In case you were closing your fridge door and you didn't hear it, the UNC candidate for Claxton Bay, 9,209, and the PNM candidate, 4,602. Just in case, Professor, just in case, Jensek, you were closing your fridge door and you didn't hear it.
But
That's it.
But I want to get back to what I think the intelligence of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They're not
UNC
dumb.
candidate for
Talk about the media and so on. They don't care what the media says. Even though those of us who decide to come over and support, they recognize, as this gentleman said before we went on, that they will hear these gunshots. They will have to look at their phones. People are not stupid.
Professor, I wouldn't go so far to say that I have a different view, that they wouldn't take on the press. Don't forget, right? All your articles is part of the press, and that had a deep influence on a lot of people out there who were deciding to create this whole voter search. Key election alert, Ken. What's going on?
Some people may have been wondering what about the chairman of the UNC, Dave Tanku in Faizabad, 8841 to the PNM's candidates whose name is Kiran Khan, 3,270. The PF did well, Patriotic Front 418. 8841 to 3270. Now I'm going to share with the team here and our many viewers the greatest non-news of the evening. Why would I mention non-news? Because we must hear it. Gary Griffith has conceded. He has conceded.
Oh, you get a lot of... I'm not surprised, right? I'm not surprised.
And you know, we have to be cynical about it because Gary should have known that he was never in the race.
Yeah, but sometimes a lot of ego.
Non-news.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
So Gary Griffith has conceded.
Gary Griffith has conceded.
What does that mean when you use the word conceded? What do you, I mean, break that down.
A loss.
Right?
I pack up my marbles, I go in home.
Go on.
Yeah. I'll
Let's
make a cup of tea and thing and I go to bed. But I lost.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it.
Right? Still find out how many votes he got.
Yes, in his constituency. But Jensek, in some seats, the NTA, and that is literally so, I'm not exaggerating, the NTA and the PF got no votes at all. In certain seats, they got literally no votes. That tells you, Prof, if I'm a candidate in a constituency and get no vote, I have to start checking my family and friends now.
And this is the point.
That is reason for divorce.
This is the point, Jensek, we were making earlier on, that you know, in all elections, we have a key race alert. All right, key race alert, Ken. Let's take a look. Tell us what's going on.
Faizabad. Well, we just mentioned that. The chairman of the UNC, Dave Tanku, switched from Oropush West to Faizabad, and he's bringing it home in style. 8841 votes to 3,270 for the PNM. So another triumph for Mr. Tanku, a significant victory for him in his new political home of Faizabad.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, gentlemen, on the NT. I'm sure by tomorrow or sometime after tomorrow, you're going to hear, well, they lose the election, or they lost deposits, whatever, because the PNM and the UNC are two race-based parties. But it's a competition. Yeah, I just wanted elections are it's about competing
that's
for
a
voters'
self-defeating
interest.
argument. That's a
Right?
self-defeating
And they
argument.
say, you know what they also say, Ken? That, okay, these parties have all kinds of monies and so on. Mr. Jensek, you know years ago, the PNM and the UNC, you had no money.
Before the
you had to
Jensek
run
comes in.
all this stuff on social media, and that's...
We have a key.
Right, we have a key.
Before the
Key election alert. Tell us what's going on.
Tunapuna, brand new results, brand new figures. 6,542, Roger Alexander, 5,630 for Esmond Ford, 6,54256.
Could you find you only writing down Tunapuna, boy? Like you have a special interest in Tunapuna.
I telling you, that boy was supposed to go up. And I know what has happened. You see, sometimes we must also talk about internal contradictions.
For Esmond Ford,
The PNM knew from the inception that this guy Ford was not. He was not
He was not the
representing
guy,
his
right?
people. He was not the guy.
You telling us something new this evening on that aspect of the fact that he was unpopular, but he was. That's something I didn't
they
know.
had somebody else.
Right.
But remember what happened. That's why people sell us. PNM's loss is also self-inflicted.
Right.
Why is it
Yes,
self-inflicted?
yes.
They knew that Ford was not well. He wasn't doing well. And that all the constituents had voted against him. But what happened when Rowley made his thing and says, I want to get those 21 votes to take to the president to make Young the prime minister, they promised him they will keep him because they want to be sure of that vote. So it's self-inflicted.
Yes. I monitor the politics closely. I didn't know that. That's a very significant development in politics. Yes.
I mean, even this guy in Port of Spain, who was Scotland, what was Scotland promised? What was Scotland
Apart from the coal pot and the
Apart from the coal pot.
And the bicycle.
He was promised it to be the Attorney General. And then the name Camille Regis Robinson.
Yes.
And all these deals were meant to keep that coalition and get it 21 votes to take it to the presidents. So even within themselves, they were acting against their own interests to of course, follow. And the fellow they scared so much as cuss them up.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of self-inflicted wounds.
Including this election without an election in the party for a leader. That
Indeed.
seemed to have damaged them
Indeed.
very badly.
Well, it ties into the point
Yes.
I've been writing and talking about for a long time too, and you encapsulated so well, self-inflicted, because they made so many errors, including what you were saying here, the change of the captain, midstream, in the middle of the match, they bring in a new captain, fire the old captain, or he fired himself.
More importantly, blind ambition. Why would the fellow who got justice, how much, you just considered? The fellow just considered?
Gary Griffith.
No, that's just pure ambition. You have nothing to offer. You can't carry out, where they had the last convention? What was the last convention?
A final campaign rally, Mr. Jensek, in an office. Isn't that a joke? That's a joke. That's a joke. A final campaign rally in an office.
So
Makes absolutely no sense.
I'm asking this, maybe
No
a
sense.
rhetorical question. Is this the political end of Gary Griffith? Is the end of his ambitions? Kevin Gibbs tells us we have new figures coming up. We're going to share that now. Tobago
Right.
East.
Tobago East,
4168 for the TPP candidate, 2676 for the incumbent Ayanna Webster Roy. Now, we had said before, and we repeat again, that the TPP was strongly favored in that seat, and it appears to be staying true to form. 4168 to 2676. The electorate in each of those constituencies are smaller than Trinidad.
May I ask a question? Where does the former Prime Minister live? What's his constituency? Tobago. You get things in Tobago is all falling down.
And Prof, this follows what happened in the THA election.
Yeah.
And they worked hard, in a manner of speaking. They opened the Tobago airport unfinished. It's a work in progress. It's a construction site. They promised A, B, C, and D. And the people of Tobago seem to have taken a decision. You talk to our colleagues and friends in Tobago, the ones I talk to, and so we've taken a decision against the PNM, you know.
I think the term they've been using is practical.
Right.
What's that?
What's that?
When they open these things, practical.
Yeah.
Opening,
practical
the
open, not
the central block, etc.
The central block, you know, the central block, that was, to me, was a fiasco, the central, and they delayed the opening of the highway here in Chase Village.
But what did that indicate?
What did it achieve in the end?
No, what did it indicate?
They were frantic,
they
were desperate.
And they were looking at any straw to keep them going.
Yeah.
Any objective observer understands and knows.
Kevin
we have
Gibbs
a key
coming.
election alert. Let's
show the man.
Prof, I always wanted to ask you, asking you on live TV, how did you come up with that term, the leader of grief? I read that every Saturday night.
And sorrow.
and sorrow to it.
Yeah,
I
I
read
think-
that every Saturday
George
night.
Orwell.
I think that hurts
George Orwell wrote Animal Farm on these people. These were propagandists.
Yeah.
You name somebody because he epitomizes that. So the leader with grief, we tired, our sorrow, is he.
Yeah.
So you
But
put that
you
name.
went a long way, Prof, and I want to say this as a media person, in demarking, identifying, and distinguishing Dr. Rowley for what he was, and he did it very early. I've said so, I've written this very, very early in the scheme of things, as you use the correct term in terms of black people. I betrayed the black people, and you identified that. And subsequent events continue to reinforce that. The recusals, Dr. Rowley never got that point, you know. When I wrote about that and people spoke about that, the recusal indicated that Stuart Young was at the behest of big business.
A
And Dr. Rowley attempted to dismiss that.
a recusal is a conflict of interest.
Yes.
So if you've got 137 conflict, how do you rule?
Yep.
When you become the prime minister?
Yeah.
And by the way, gentlemen, just before I joined you all on this set,
Yes.
I was outside, and I need to let you know that, and that's about a half an hour ago.
Yes.
The road outside was virtually being closed down by the crowd.
Barricaded, yeah.
Outside.
Right.
By the crowd. And
By the crowd.
there's good
But by the
police.
police, by the crowd.
But there's good police.
There is police presence
presence.
outside here.
Yeah.
There is police presence.
But I'm sure.
You know, we should take the opportunity, gentlemen, and our many viewers, to thank law enforcement for the work they've done. Generally speaking, they've done a very good job. Keeping the peace and being vigilant at the meetings and so on.
I think you're right.
Yes, I saw some law enforcement officers at the various rallies and so on.
Yeah.
We have hard-working, loyal, competent police
But
officers.
remember
There's
also-
some bad knobs. Just let me finish the point. But I want to say, and I speak for all of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm sure, in thanking the police, the law enforcement, and also we need to talk about the others who were involved, the healthcare workers and so on, who were vigilant on election day, and we need to thank them. Sorry, Prof.
In spite of the fact that in the last few days in this campaign, there were people insinuating that there may be trouble in this election and so on, to the point where the police...
Well, we have a key election alert. Ken, just tell us.
All right, Professor's
going on here?
smile is getting broader because in Tunapuna, Roger Alexander, 7,072, stretching the lead against Esmond Ford, 5,928. Now, when we updated you a bit a while ago, about 15, 20 minutes ago, the lead was just under 1,000, and it narrowed a little bit again.
So
and
it's
now in
back
this
up.
further
It's gone
update,
back.
it
Over
has
to
exceeded 1,000. 7,072 to 5,928. Prof?
But you have to look at certain kinds of signs. The police, while they've done a wonderful job, has generally been antagonistic to the UNC. It represents a certain kind of... They've been much more cordial now. Yeah. And they do understand what has been happening. It's not by guess, you know. People are social beings. They respond and recognize that they too have to be part of what's going on. And that's why I know there will be a sweep in the land. I tell all that when I came on, you know. When those wins it affects everyone. You begin, and that's why I'm saying the great opportunity here for this victory is to bring the society closer together. That we begin to understand each other. These groups understand you're there in service.
Yeah, you know, and I want to ask Mr. the Gensec. I mean, you were in the last term, 2010, 2015. You see governance now like, being different in a particular way based on probably what things that probably happened in the last governance structure.
Well,
Repeat the question, I didn't quite get it.
In the last 2010, 2015, right? Probably there would have been issues. Party lost the election, and now, based on the numbers we're seeing, it seems very likely that we're going to get a second shot at governance in the country. And I'm asking you if you see that as doing things differently based on what may have gone on the last time.
Well, once this result go as we all hope it go,
yes.
I don't think we are under any illusions. I don't think our political leader coming in as the next prime minister is under any illusions of the state of this nation,
right,
of the state of the economy, crime, etc., etc. So I think the leader and the members of this party recognize that there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Right? But I think more than that is that the people of Trinidad and Tobago recognize that after almost 10 years, they had to find a solution to fix the problems. And I think they recognize that the UNC in government on both occasions under Mr. Pandey and under Mrs. Bisessa would have shown that we are able to treat with some of the issues that they have.
Right, we have a key election alert. Ken, tell us what was going
for the
on.
first time, we're getting some figures from San Fernando East.
Oh.
John Ali Bokas, 4,404. Brian Manning, 4,962. Now, take note, San Fernando East is one of...
Solid seat, even in the time when
Of
NAR
Right.
won
Yes.
the election.
That's the point I was going to make.
That's-
Mr. Manning ran away with that, was Muriel McDonough Davison and
The PNM has never lost
Morris
San
Marshall.
Fernando East.
Three of them.
And
Now
yeah.
we're seeing like a 400 difference
Yeah,
in the votes there.
400,
Yeah, that's a
500
huge
plus.
difference. It's very
So,
close.
The PNM has never lost San Fernando.
Never
East.
lost
It's
it.
never lost. They had Brian Manning, who had, and I could say this openly, a track record of non-performance. People never saw him. People said he didn't have the charisma of his father, who represented that constituency for a generation. On the other hand, John Ali Bokas,
was he-
extremely charming. He is an artist, an entertainer. He has connections with the train line in Marbella and so on. And
But
he was able to not only campaign, but campaign effectively and put on concerts and so on in Pleasantville, a former heartland of the PNM, Pleasantville. So the ground has shifted. Maybe we'll find out soon whether
He
enough
is
or
not
not.
just an entertainer. This man, his entire family, remember they have that whole Charlie's pudding business
He's
on Third Street.
He's very good at
Right?
marketing.
And he runs that entire family business that has been there for generations, doing pudding and sauce, and anybody in San Fernando could tell you about that on Third Street.
Well,
Charlie's pudding.
I'm proud to say I'm a patron.
That's what I'm saying. So that, in addition to the skills that you mentioned in terms of the musical skills
Indeed.
and his singing career and so on,
Yeah.
really that combination.
I am proud to
great
say
entity.
I taught his sister
Okay.
on both occasions, and she has sung at all my birthday parties.
Oh.
However, I want to get Jaron. I would not say. I think we should get over to say that we're giving UNC a second shot. I don't think a second shot. Again, things change. We rivals say that we give them a second shot. The people are saying we need new sets of leaders. And if you win this time around, it's not going to be a second shot.
All right, we got a key
Sorry,
election
go ahead.
alert. A key election alert. Let's see what's coming up on the screen right now.
Tunapuna,
This is Tunapuna.
8,209 for Roger Alexander, 6,746. And Prof, we must be getting close to the final tally. Yeah, 8 and
6 and 8 are 14,000. 15,000.
Yeah.
How many voted last year?
All right.
How many voted
Yeah,
last
probably
year?
less.
It could be more than 16,000.
Yeah.
And Mr.
So-
Ali and Mr. Lewis and hey, that's a victory. That's
a significant lead.
6
It's
and
getting
8
close.
are 14. That's about 15,000 votes. If you look at last year, the amount of votes was not about, it was around 16,000. Huh? 2020.
Yeah.
So that's almost, you could begin to call it. How did you do on CNN, my brother?
We got a key election alert.
Wolf Blitzer would say,
Yes,
we are calling
Wolf Blitzer.
Tunapuna.
Now
We're
I can
calling
declare.
Tunapuna.
And now I can declare.
We can now declare Tunapuna.
All right,
Yes.
no. We can declare.
Just declared it Tunapuna. Right, so
Okay.
I think
so that's Tunapuna.
one
Excuse me.
of our
Hello.
producers are going to come in the background.
Is that what?
Okay.
Was that?
Well, let's.
Oh God, what is
No,
Dr.
let's
Rowley has
leave.
conceded.
Let me hear the man. Look.
Dr. Rowley has conceded the election. All right.
Rastafari Jah. But is he speaking there?
Okay, we will give you that update.
But why isn't Stuart Young doing that?
Huh?
I don't understand.
Because
that.
he's leader of the party.
Oh, he's okay.
Stuart is his protege. He's just standing.
Okay. Right.
And
So
as he said,
we're gonna let me let the audience know. You're watching Code Yellow podcast live from the UNC headquarters here in Grand Central, Shogunas.
She's saying something to you.
On set, we're gonna bring to you shortly a concession speech by the political leader of the PNM. I guess.
I don't know. Is that what we're getting now?
Yes. He just
Okay, so
conceded the
major
elections.
developments are taking place
All right,
now.
so we have
when
some
the
stuff
broom begin
going
to
on in the
sweep,
background, so we're gonna tell you
when the
more
broom
about that's
begin
going
to
on.
sweep,
All right.
clean. What is it saying?
So
What
just-
is saying there?
So just
What is it saying there?
you can come, ma'am.
Ma'am, come please, come on.
Please come.
Come, miss. Ma'am, come on the stage. Come
Come
on
on,
the podcast.
because this
come.
is TV. You
Come,
can't be in the
come
background.
and come and do the thing.
My
Okay,
goodness.
we are going to update you on
Yeah, but we need
Dr.
somebody to
Rowley's
talk this.
statement. Now is
You have it? You got it?
Let's see what's going on
10:22,
this one.
and the results are
Jerome,
fast and
Jerome.
furious.
Yeah, but
Jerome.
you're giving me a phone with Rowley talking. I can't
Go
read
ahead.
this.
Okay.
The thing on freeze, Kojo.
All right, okay, let's not.
As the
now,
man
just
can see
now,
the phone.
Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has
Hold on, let
indicated
me see.
Go ahead.
that the UNC has won several marginals. She has just indicated the UNC has won several marginals. Okay. Devish Maharaj is in the lead in St. Joseph. Aranguez. Yeah.
Really, Mr.
All right. I mean,
But we'll come back.
Basically,
We must come back. You can
basically,
see-
he's saying that
We must come back.
2025 is not a good year for them, and that they're gonna have to come back. You know, but-
And the opposition leader to be determined. Again, Prof, that's something we had speculated on, that they will have some issues with the selection of their opposition leader. Now,
Yeah.
Professor,
yes.
Stuart Young will become the shortest serving Prime Minister in Trinidad.
But he will still get his pension.
By height and by time.
Not height.
By height and by
Dr.
time.
Williams beat him there.
By height and by time.
Prof, now the smile is deserved.
Not a
because
smile is-
once the PNM has conceded, and we must give Dr. Rowley credit for he has conceded, he's acknowledged his loss, and he said 2025 is not a good year for the PNM, and it's because of his leadership.
Look at
he must also
look
take
at Sinanan
responsibility.
face now.
What's that?
So gentlemen.
But I thought Sinanan was saying that the UNC was preparing for its defeat.
So
and-
That's what
gentlemen,
Jen said. Go ahead.
given what we are seeing being reported here, where Dr. Rowley is now talking about who in the PNM will become the opposition leader, should we be congratulating the Prime Minister-elect,
Indeed.
Kamla Prasad Bisesa?
Indeed. It's not formal yet, but it's an indication.
They're talking about
Yeah.
who they will put as opposition leader.
Yes, yes, without having the official
Yes.
figures. No,
Why not?
Just let's say.
Why not?
Just let me put a little. Just now.
You being cautious, Ken?
No, I
Yeah?
just want to put a slight perspective here.
You being
because we
cautious?
are broadcasting too. Yeah.
You being cautious?
The Elections and Boundaries Commission would issue a statement tomorrow, hopefully not late, on the basis that the president will invite Mrs. Prasad Bissessar to President House to be sworn in. But all of that is formalizing the obvious.
But tonight, but tonight,
if the opposition
we could make a declaration.
Party has conceded, the United National Congress has won the 2025 general election in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is at this time at around 10.
All right, so let me just put that out to the audience out there. If you're watching the Code Yellow podcast, we've been here since 7:30, bringing you all the updates, and the latest information is that the political leader of the People's National Movement, Dr. Keith Rowley, has just conceded the elections, and as we continue to go along, we're going to give you more information and kind of keep you updated as to what is going on. But so far, in the marginals, Tunapuna, it's Roger Alexander is leading Mr. Esmond Ford by over 1,000 votes.
We don't have the figures on St. Joseph Aranguez, but Devesh Maharaj
Miaro
is leading
gone.
there.
We've seen some figures in San Fernando West. It's close in San Fernando East, which was Mr. Manning's seat. Very strong old seat, Professor. And Ali Bokas leading by somewhere around 405 votes at this time. So these are just rough numbers based on the data that's coming in. But as Professor Kojo said, when you get a sweep with a broom, there's no dust in your face. No dust in your face.
Just let me give another update. Mrs. Prasad Bissessar, Mrs. Prasad Bissessar has left or was leaving. She would have left by now to come to this destination where she will address her supporters and the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
And also, just to remind you that she was the first to declare her seat in Superior, over 9,000
So
votes.
for the next few hours, she'll be called Prime Minister-elect.
Yes.
And one anticipates within few hours, tomorrow morning, hopefully tomorrow morning, she will be officially appointed as the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
But let's I brought my suit
to go President House?
Yes, sir. But let us get...
He has to go back to Tacarigua first.
But he can walk he can't walk Tacarigua proudly tonight.
But let us get...
Because I know if you looked at him all night, he was just writing down the numbers for Tunapuna only. That's the man.
But let's get a...
Yes, Professor, go ahead. We're still live. Go ahead.
Let us get a little more sober. Oh, sorry, go ahead to bring someone on.
Kenny Phillips is joining us.
Yes. He only come when he know we win. He ain't come when he votes counted. You see how they're deceitful? Give him,
Tobago East. Look at David Thomas winning Tobago East.
All right, so just to let you know, folks, update, David Thomas has won in Tobago, and Joel Nutsi Sampson has won in Tobago West. So those two seats in Tobago West has gone to the TPP. We have on set with us now Mr. Deceitful. All evening I said, come and join us. He said, nah, I ain't coming because he ain't sure. Kojo and I here and Ken Ali, taking all this pressure. Here he is. He's now arrived. Mr. Kenny Phillip. Come on.
As a member of the younger generation within the party,
thank you.
This is, I can't even explain it yet.
Yes,
you know
man.
how I was feeling. You know how hard we work. You know how hard we work.
Yes, man. Thank you. Kenny Phillips, welcome.
Listen to me.
Thank you for, let me say before you talk, thank you for all the great work you've done for the campaign the last 6 weeks. I know you've been doing 2 a night, and you've been giving us a very steady stream, good audio, good video. So thank you so much for being with us.
Strange enough, as you said that,
it
was on the last broadcast in Aranguez when they put up the ticker tape.
Yes.
When Kevin put up the ticker tape and it says stream manager Kenny Phillips.
Yes.
Then it dawned on me wait now. That's the work we've been doing for
Exactly.
3 months. 3 months now is longer than that, you know.
It's longer than that,
It's longer
but I
than
mean
that.
the intensity was just in the last 6
And
weeks.
I really don't want to come here and talk now. I like to be behind the scenes and doing my work. But you just want to give you and this fella here just want to give me chat. But congratulations to you, Jerome. It was you and Kevin and Jolene John who pulled me in here. All right? Thank you so much. Kevin feeling smart. Pulling me here. Congratulations.
I want to give a real big up to Jolene John, because when I came into the party, I really started walking with her, right? And it was this fella here. He said, "Boy, if you have to join our party, join UNC, you know. This fella, big PNM man, you know. Yeah, this fella,
Okay.
Tell me that.
What year was this?
That would have been 2017.
It's about 17.
But
I have that photograph. I have that photograph.
But let me just finish this, And I walked with Jolene John throughout the length and breadth of La Hoqueta Talparo. This voter surge that you see came to the UNC black voters, right? It didn't start now, you know. That didn't start now. Jolene, when we had the first meeting in one of the phases, I couldn't remember if it was phase 1 or 2, in La Hoqueta Talparo, we had 10 people showed up. 10 people showed up, right? It was a tough fight, it was a lot of work. She stayed with it, she built an entire team up there with the councillors and everybody. And what you had, Kenny and gentlemen, over time was this spillover to the corridor. And when we had all these Monday night forum meetings like in Mova, you were there.
For all of them,
every single one was sold out.
Yeah.
And that drift took place all across the country. Then we had added to that was Professor Kojo, who came with a dossier in the Express for the last couple of months, outlining the plight of black people in the People's National Movement. And I could tell you, when we were at the UNC rally on Saturday, a lot of folks came to Professor Kojo and you know what they said to him? They said, "Boy, nobody never said they're black, you know. They've never seen professional black people say they're black. Like Kevin would say it, well, I know about you. Kojo would say it. I mean, I would say it, right? Even Kojo knows my family business, right? Grandmother is Indian, but identifies black.
Say that again, please.
It's true, you know.
Why you say it on
Say it,
stage?
man, I know you want to say it.
But guys, for real, we need to pick up Jolene.
Yeah, so
I want to say, hold on.
We had to pick up Jolene.
Nobody.
Is she like
Listen to me.
What the guy named hardest working man in show business?
Listen to
James
me.
Brown.
James Brown, hardest working
Listen to me.
woman in politics.
It have nobody apart from my mother in this life that buffed me as much as Jolene done. But you know what the point was? She wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
She wanted it to be perfect. She wanted to make sure I wasn't saying, but that good enough.
Yes.
And that has translated into them people like Kenny Phillips mocking me. Right? Tonight. Tonight, right here. But I will be going, get it down. The song down. We having problems. And I started to buff people. Really, actually, it's Jolene buffing me to do better and I buffing them to do better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's true.
Because I don't think anybody here said it tonight.
I
Because
guess
she was aware from the beginning that when UNC wins, everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins, yeah.
I want to ask Kenny a question. Is there going to be a victory song? Because those who don't know, everybody knows Kenny, but those few who may not know should be reminded that he's one of Trinidad and Tobago's finest music producers. And he owns and operates a radio station.
Kojo don't know that. Kojo don't know that.
Plays local music wall to wall, and he has high listenership.
He also created a lot of the road marches.
Yeah.
For Trinidad.
Kenny,
And his son,
Excuse me.
his son now doing a lot of road
Excuse
marches.
me.
Yes.
I went to this radio station and picked it up about 20 years ago and take it out of the dumps. Don't run that. Don't run that. I come there when you start.
But Kenny, as you're here,
And now one person,
yes, go ahead.
the most important listener who was called from the States is from Tagarigua, Listra. Don't give, look at you from Tagarigua, Listra.
Kenny, we were talking earlier on about this, and you being this producer, about the music and all these Trinidad artists who came on the platform just on the spot being able to deliver this music.
The
Tell us a little bit about that,
The
man.
word is organically.
Organic,
Because
right.
I didn't see. In fact, you know, sometimes for elections, people just, I write a song and give me 100,000. I write a song and give me two, you know. It was like the songs just came. People were sending me songs. I said, but I don't have no authority to give me the songs. I would send it to him. And I said, people were just doing it. And that's some people doing their own video. And when I say, hey, that video is not portraying what the people want to portray, but they send it to me. The groundswell was just too much. It was just too much.
I tried.
People were fed up. People were fed up.
Tired. That is
And then the next thing, we see this Afro-Trinidadian cry down. We take offense to that.
Yes.
We take offense. We are big people. We are big, educated, smart, intellectual people. And if you sideline us, and you're giving everything to somebody else, it's going to come back and bite you.
No. It has come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All I realize that you all realize that while you guys are sitting in here, being all stuffy and discussing your intellectual greatness, you know, a massive fit going on right outside, you know.
Each of us have our part. Each of us has our part to play, so we are worried about that.
I want to ask a question. I want everybody around the table to take a shot at it. Start with the professor. What is going to be Dr. Rowley's legacy?
Could you mash him up?
Take him.
I can answer that. Could you mash up?
Before you go there, how it is Dr. Rowley declaring? Where is the Prime Minister?
Well,
The former Prime Minister.
Well, the former Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So who
Prime
declared?
Minister for a day.
So why is
For a few
Dr.
days.
Rowley declaring?
But as you see, we have to understand, he don't speak answers. The fact of the matter, Rowley, I can't say, because conflict of interest, 137 times did Mr. Stuart Young. We have a paper.
Yes.
Who he
Yes.
recludes on what? Young father
109.
and the brother.
Yes.
So therefore, it was never, that's why he had to be sure he gave the boy the gift. But what happened is, he gave it a gift so the boy could protect him. So what has happened, people see through that. Look at you, you just made a fundamental statement. What makes they think that we so stupid we can't make up our own mind? That's a fundamental diss. And people took it seriously.
Yep.
I get it daily.
That's right.
Daily I get in it. Oh, you're broadcasting, I like, so I am not to work. How am I to pay my bills? You understand? I'm not supposed to, unless Pierre give me a handout. Okay. We probably have
A
to get
food
them a
card.
handout now.
Hopefully you can run the business on a food card.
I'll try. I'll go try.
Well, at least you know this election, what it says. Look, the vote belongs to no one party.
I mean, vote don't belong to one party. What do you mean by that? It doesn't belong to one party?
I say it doesn't belong to no one party.
What do you mean
Black
by
votes,
that? What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that?
Well, tell me.
The black votes don't belong to PNM. Only there's a kind of a.
Oh, you said the black vote?
Yeah.
Oh, the black vote.
Doesn't belong to PNM.
But there's never.
People gonna vote in the interest.
I want to
what we
add
see
something
is
here that might sound a little stranger. It's not just the black vote. Because we had other religious organizations, Hindu organizations, saying, well, they will hold back the vote, they will do this and they will do that.
Hey.
The vote does not belong to anybody, but your vote belongs to you, Kenny.
Yeah.
Your vote belongs.
Philip Watts win. Look at the.
Philip Watts?
Win.
Right, so just to give you a key election alert, Philip Watts has just won
Look, it's a sweep.
Wayne Sturge has done Toko Manzanilla.
It's a sweep.
All right.
And
It's a
Roger Alexander
sweep.
for Tunapuna. So it's a
right.
major sweep.
And I've
on
got to
the
be
corridor.
careful.
How can I tell? Paro, Philip Watts, Tunapuna, Roger Alexander,
It's a sweep.
Toko Manzanilla, Wayne Sturge, Kamala rises again. All right. The prediction, well, that's just one prediction. 24-15-2. And this, gentlemen, is
Let's be
it took an optimistic person to anticipate
I
it.
said 24.
Okay.
Okay, will you tell me? I said 24.
Okay.
But let me get one thing straight.
That 24 without counting the 2.
Let me get one thing straight.
Brian
Ken
Manning
Ali,
has won.
Ken Ali, and Cleveland. Let me get them straight.
You're not sure?
Let me get
What
something.
about San Fernando West? Go ahead, Prof.
Let me get something straight. And let's be honest. The movement of black people in the UNC ensured the victory of the UNC. Forget all churches. And what has happened? Black people got tired. You heard the man say that. We got nothing out of PNM. They betrayed us. And black people turn on them.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, yes.
Religious group and so on.
But
No.
Prof, that's acknowledged.
No. Somebody was saying religious groups. I'm saying,
No.
let's be honest. I am saying
Yeah,
you, guys, like, look at all of us here. You look at any UNC meeting and you could get the vibe. You go down there.
Listen, Professor, in the last election, 2020, it was 40-60 Afro to Indo. Right now, it's 50-50, if not 60-40. And I've been in all the meetings.
Yes.
I have missed one meeting.
But Kenny, the kind of people you seen there were fundamental people.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have seen all the workers, the CPAC workers, all they seen in the crowd, CPAC workers. But Penn and the Black, we said, and that's why I say, it's very narrow to reduce.
The map still has spots to fill.
Yes, they lose. But I think they took us for granted. A guy like the finance minister, I raised the gasoline once, I raised it twice, I raised it twice. They're riot. You took us for granted. Never do that. And
it was an obscenity.
Yes.
It was an obscenity.
Yeah, I think they went too far.
Are you saying
That's
to
extreme.
me that I must accept that? No, I ain't accepting that.
But you know, Professor and colleagues, it was a kind of arrogance, a haughtiness, and the tone was set by Dr. Rowley 10 years ago. And every time when he got criticism from the media and from the opposition and from civic society and so on, he was bullying the society to the point where a lot of people, the academics, stopped talking, many trade unionists. So a lot of people stopped talking and criticizing for fear.
And a lot of, Ken, just to add to that, a lot of people saw all that happening. A lot of people saw all that stuff going on, and they just went along.
But they didn't
Nobody
go
questioned
along.
anything.
They did not go along.
No, but they took quiet note of it.
They did go along.
They didn't go along. They waited till they got an opportunity
But yes,
to throw him out.
because you know what I mean, it's only 5 years after the end of the thing. You could,
they
at the end of
did not
5 years,
go
they
along.
went along.
I want to make this point too. I grew up in the era of Dr. Williams, who said, when I talk, not a damn dog bark. Who said, who don't like it could get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
That era has changed. The society, and Mrs. Prasad says 5 years made the society more empathetic, more sympathetic, more conscious of each other. The world has changed, and Dr. Rowley never adapted to that world.
And
He brought down the PNM.
And this election shows you one thing, they're going to wait for you. They're going to wait for you for that 5 years. When that 5 years up, and that's it. And that's what we kind of see tonight with the huge numbers.
But
and
I
that's what
think,
we are seeing along
but
the
I
the
think, and
Congress.
that's one thing we have to abuse ourselves of, is that people are thinking beings. Nobody are just objects in the historical. We are subjects, and we make decisions in light of what's going on. You started much earlier, 2017. Others came along, but gradually we begin to understand that is not acceptable.
Yes.
Because they get away in 2020. They get away. We didn't make the same mistake this time. This is in terms of imagery, organization, discipline.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. And we also had we have good candidates. Some of those candidates were very strong.
Look at the crowd there. What's the future for Stuart Young? Is this the end of his political career?
Where's that?
The PNM will well throw him in the dustbin the way they did in 2010
No,
of Patrick Manning.
He's not going to win. He's not going to win any leadership position.
No, absolutely.
They will throw him out.
Penny Beckles may be the person.
Not Penny.
Who?
It might be very well Cummins.
Okay.
But not Penny. But what I'm saying...
No, but listen. Cummings has lost La Hoqueta. I'm talking about in the parliament now, the opposition leader.
It might be so. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying...
They may need a fresh start. You never know.
Yeah.
What I'm
The mini left
saying
wrist
is
stand.
that
Dr. Rowley destroyed
only
them.
thing I want to say, Mr. Young is not going to be the leader or necessarily be the leader.
Yes.
All
of
the
the
guys who signed that letter lost the seat.
stupid people.
All the guys who signed,
Stupid
all the
people,
guys who
Gerald.
signed the letter, Kojo, lost the seat.
People. Nobody had the
Lost the
test-
seat, including
Nobody
commission.
had the courage to stand up.
Because even La Hokita Talparo.
Now, I only have one
gone.
concern about Roger Alexander going to the parliament.
What's that?
And this is a concern. When he comes to be knocking the desk, he will break down the desk. No, we are very, very, very happy that he has been elected and
Congratulations
several
to,
others. Yeah.
to all the candidates. If you're joining us, this is the UNC Code Yellow broadcast in front the headquarters.
Inside of the head. Oh, outside.
Where?
Outside the headquarters, it's a big fete.
Yeah.
Yellow flags. And we're waiting the arrival of the political leader, who I'm sure when she comes, we're going to have a little chat with her.
Divish
outside.
Maharaj has won Arangua St. Joseph, which means he also obliterated Gary
the-
Griffith.
Yes.
Is
Oh,
what?
she's here.
Who's here?
Okay, so we're reporting that Mrs. Prasad Visesa has arrived. Yeah.
gonna come inside
at
or outside?
party headquarters. It is a giant crowd here. History is in the making. Mrs. Prasad Visesa has been re-elected the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in a significant victory. She has swept several marginal seats on the east-west corridor,
You want to repeat that?
Yeah.
What the seats are?
including
When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
yeah.
UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, everybody. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody
Good evening.
wins.
Good night. UNC family and friends, I am very happy to join with you here at our party's headquarters. I ask you to join with me to first of all let us say thanks and praise to Almighty God. When God says yes, nobody can say no. I want to thank our coalition partners joined with us for us to secure this victory. So can we give them a round of applause? United Coalition of Interests. And of course, I thank all of you, rank and file members of the UNC who have stood with me through thick and thin, through light and through darkness. You have carried me on a journey that was filled with love, with determination and resilience. I started off this campaign by saying, you will be the real heroes in this story. And I end this campaign saying the same, you are the real heroes in this story of Trinidad and Tobago. All of you, I cannot single out one or two or three. There have been so many thousands of you working in your zones, working in your sections. Today was really a great display of cooperation and of hard work where everyone stood in their zone and worked. Whether the seat was Superior, whether the seat was St. Joseph, whether it was Tunapuna, whichever seat it was, we had teams and teams of activists and people working every single seat. And so they did so well. All of you, thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying on the course and believing in our great party. Thank you, TNT. I say thank you for your support during this campaign. Thank you for your confidence for a better TNT. And for letting the world know that we, the people, have the real power in Trinidad and Tobago. We the people, you are the people, you are the government. Not the fake elites, not the financiers with all their money, but the real people of Trinbago who have toiled and kept faith that you deserve better. This victory is for the senior citizens to keep their pensions. This victory is for public servants to get their rightful salary increases. This victory is to reopen the Children's Hospital. This victory is to reopen Petrotrin. This victory is to once again give laptops to our children. This victory is to create over 50,000 jobs. And so, the victory is yours. Now that the UNC has won, everybody wins. We have fought a clean campaign. We have fought a campaign based on policies, plans, and programs. After years we spent listening to you and taking note of your wants, your needs, your hopes, and your desires. It is now that the real work starts. From day one, we'll be focused on delivering on our promises, working to make every citizen's life better, brighter, more prosperous. I give you the assurance tonight that no one will be left behind. No one will be left behind. Because when UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. We will walk into government together. You will now have a Prime Minister who cares. A Prime Minister who loves you. A Prime Minister who will fight so that we all win together. We will work for you. You are the real bosses, and we are here to serve. Serve the people. Serve the people. Serve the people. You have an elected people-centered government for the people, by the people, and with the people. So permit me again to say thank you. Thank you. Let us rejoice and celebrate this day in our history. This has been a tremendous blessing. And once again, I thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. We will be with you every step of the way over the next 5 years and beyond. And I want to say tonight, and beyond, I want to say tonight to all our candidates who gave everything that they did, every muscle, every sinew they strained and worked so hard. Give it up for all our candidates of the UNC. Give it up for the candidates of the coalition of interests. And I say, get ready to win. It is time to win, because now that the UNC did win, everybody wins. I have told you before, I have always told you, you have had leaders before me. You will have leaders after me. But I know you will never, ever have a leader who loves you as much as I do. May the good Lord continue to bless and keep each and every one of you. I thank you. Thank you. God bless.
You're gonna learn.
Feel alright. Hear the children crying. One love. Hear the children crying. One heart. Saying, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright.
UNC, you win them now. Oh, you win them now. You win them now. Anti-Kamla win them now. Glory, glory, hallelujah. None of them can come and anti-Kamla. Take a look, UNC taking over. I know PNM can come wrong. You win them now. Oh, you win them now. You win them now. Anti-Kamla win them now. When we don't know, still young them is liar. I'm calling him bird, raise the gas higher. Upon the PNM, we gonna dash a fire. Cause no policy can come wrong.
When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one. Now UNC wins. Everybody wins. Now Kamala wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins.
father. It's time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. When UNC win, everybody wins. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. For the past 10 years, you know we wholly fear how the whole place turning at the Berber state. Put your ex next to the rising sun. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, it's time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. When UNC win, everybody wins. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. For the past 10 years, you know we wholly fear how the whole place turning at the Berber state. It's only a ship under the Palisade. Now the UNC come here to save the day. So remember when election come, put your ex by the rising sun. Because I win for UNC. Everybody, it's a win for TNT. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team. One hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team. One hope, one dream. When UNC win, everybody wins. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody! When UNC win, everybody wins. Everybody's a winner. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. For UNC. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Put your ex next to the rising sun. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, it's time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. When UNC win, everybody wins. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. For the past 10 years, you know we wholly fear how the whole place turning at the Berber state. It's only a ship under the Palisade. Now the UNC come here to save the day. So remember when election come, put your ex by the rising sun. Because I win for UNC. Everybody, it's a win for TNT. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team. One hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One team, one hope, one dream. When UNC win, everybody win. Everybody! When UNC win, everybody win. Everybody's a winner. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. For UNC. order. It's time to design. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can live properly, place your ex by the rising sun. When UNC win, everybody wins. When UNC win, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. For the past 10 years, you know we hold it faith. Now the whole place turning at the Berber state. It's only a ship under the Palisade. Now the UNC come here to save the day. So remember when election come, put your eggs by the rising sun. Because I win for UNC. Everybody, it's a win for TNT. Election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream.
In the right track, let me talk was a friend, and me like it like that. Coming on my life like snaking out the grass. One with your fakeness in the right track.
Well, I don't have time to beef. Lucky for you, my friend. I in a good spirit. I drink in a good spirits. The vibes right up to the limits. So don't hold me down, don't fight me down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good spirit. I drink in a good spirits. The vibes ain't cars in a minute. So don't hold me down, don't fight me down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My friend and them could I tell you about me. Good people is good people. We only want love and we still good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My family could I tell you about me. Good people is good people. We only on love.
I'll go cross any ocean to find it. Won't let no mountain get in the way. Hey. We come cross the water, been through the fire.
Tank.
I know that my heart will show me the way. Everywhere you turn, you see people smiling. We don't see no creed and race. Don't want nobody tell we about leaving. We fight for we thing and this is we place. Take me home.
Hey, tank.
I'll go cross any ocean to find it. Won't let no mountain get in the way. Hey. We come cross the water, been through the fire. I know that my heart will show me the way. Everywhere you turn, you see people smiling. We don't see no creed and race. Don't want nobody tell we about leaving. We fight for we thing and this is we place. Take me home. Take me home. Take me to a place where my heart don't feel no pain. Take me home. Take me home. Take me home. Well, everybody shouting out right there. It have a rhythm deep down inside me. And if you're looking for me, you go find me. Right there, right there. I repeat the bim 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 right there. It have a rhythm deep down inside.
Give praise, children, yeah. Give praise, children, yeah. Give praise, children. Our Father who has given us His arms that we can all feel like we're a part of this earthly heaven.
as we move, as we move, as we move, yeah. I beg you, watch over us, watch over us. Father, bless everybody in this party, yeah. Put hands on us, put hands on us. Father, bless everybody in this party, yeah. Watch over us. In we going out and we coming in. I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Put hands on us. I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Watch over us. I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't make another move till we blast this party. Cause I come here with the intention to get on bad. Bad, bad, bad. Whoa, to get on mad and crazy inside of this party. Full intention to get on mad. Mad, mad, mad. Hey, to get on mad and crazy inside of this party.
Remember the days of toting water, anytime that you have to bid. Or when people pass and they see you, oh my Lord, used to feel that shame. Wondering if this lasts forever, wondering when you will feel proud. If it's one thing that he didn't tell me, there is sunrise after each cloud. I say, even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it. Oh Lord, I'm gonna make it. Even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it.
Burn them, fire go burn them. Whoa, oh Lord, I said this is the year for love. Fire go burn them, fire go burn them. Whoa, say little boy, you ain't bad at all. No, another one just gone. But you beat your chest and smile. Say you're a madman. Another young boy fall. The soul can rest at night. Oh, you's a bad man. Bad man is a man who just defend woman and protect the young ones by any means, Lord. You ain't no bad man, boy, nah. You ain't no bad man. A real bad man just make his own decisions. He don't need anyone. He only needs God.
When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can build, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who can lead properly, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins, everybody wins. Vote for peace, vote for love, vote for hope, vote for change. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins, everybody wins. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day,